When the public hears about a government UFO investigation, they usually think of press conferences, congressional hearings, sanitized reports, and an overall downplay of the phenomenon in general. But long before the daily headlines were there, intelligence operators sat in dark, secure facilities staring at raw, unedited sensor data that didn't fit into our understanding or model of physics and technology. Our guest this episode has spent over 2 decades as a U.S. Air Force All-Source Intelligence Analyst before becoming one of the foundational figures inside the Jay Stratton-led UAP Task Force. He is also an eyewitness to a craft in 1990 that mirrored the legendary Calvine UFO sighting. He was also in Phoenix for the mass sighting in 1997. Ultimately, he's also a survivor of the intelligence apparatus's institutional pushback. And while media platforms have touched on his story, the surface level summaries, we are set to take a deeper dive into the procedural mechanics of how intelligence actually process anomalous objects. The disappointment in the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO for short, whistleblower fallout, and the deep personal cost of staring into the unknown. On this episode, our guest is veteran Mr. Lenval Logan. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Total Disclosure. We are here with Lenval Logan. I have been looking forward to this show for quite a bit now, and it is an absolute honor to be sitting next to someone who has done so much behind the scenes for this community. This kind of switch to the taking it very seriously, the research endeavor, the investigative efforts that have gone into it. I'm really excited to learn about everything that you've done and everything that you're planning on doing. So welcome to Total Disclosure.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
We talked a while back, set the show up, and we have some common friends, and it all just came together really nicely. So again, I just want to say thank you. For someone who maybe hasn't come across your story, you've been on Joe Rogan, you were featured in the program. You've done a lot already, but I think that there's so much more to you than what's out there right now.
Yeah. There's quite a bit. Still trying to explore all the options, but yeah.
Yeah. Just for someone, like I said, who doesn't know or hasn't gone into your story, can you tell me a little bit about, your origins and childhood, why you chose the military, and, we'll go from there.
Well, I can do that. So I was born in Nottingham, England, which is Sherwood Forest and all that other stuff. Every time I watch a Robin Hood movie, I'm like that is not the castle, and I, I get frustrated, but I understand it now. And a lot of people just don't believe Robin Hood was real, so I have to go through that whole thing. But I was born there, and when I was younger, I saw something in the sky that I didn't really understand. It looked like an iron that you iron your clothes with, and the whole bottom was glowing. It was orange, like orange red, and the top part was just, it looked like a hanger. There was a part on the top, and what was happening was my friend and I were throwing a tennis ball back and forth to each other, and you see the sneakers wrapped around the telephone lines.
Yes.
So we saw a sneaker wrapped around the telephone line, and then I'm looking off in the distance, going, "What is that?" And he looks at it and he goes, "That's got to be a helicopter." And I said, "I don't hear anything."
Right.
No
rotor wash, nothing?
Yeah, there's nothing. And it's off in the distance, probably about a good 5 miles or so. And all of a sudden we hear what sounds like F-4 jets coming. And just as the F-4s come into the scene, this thing just takes off like a bat out of hell. It was gone. And I was like, what was that? So we went in to tell our parents, and the typical, shut up, eat your dinner, you got too much imagination, blah, 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 blah. So you just kind of let it go. But it kind of stuck in my head. And years later, I heard someone talking about it, and again, I looked into it, and no real answers, so I just let it go. And then my mom and dad got divorced, and I came to the U.S. My plan was join the military, get stationed back in England. Back then, you used to get a free education when you graduated high school.
Right.
You go right into college. It's a thing. We've kind of more adopted the American system now, where you have to pay and all that other stuff.
Privatized education, yeah.
But I joined the Air Force after, I was going to do the Marine Corps with my buddy, and then they couldn't get us in on the buddy program. But my cousin was in the Air Force, so I said, I'm going to do the Air Force route. And obviously, I tried to get back to England, and wherever you put on your dream sheet, that's not where they're sending you. I should have learned that right off the bat. I was trying to be a pararescue person, and I ended up being what they call a strategic aircraft maintenance specialist. And that's what I signed up for. And then when I got to school, they go, "Oh, no, you're going to be a crew chief." I was like, "No, they said a strategic aircraft maintenance specialist."
It sounds so much cooler.
And everybody's laughing at me. I was like, and I had this real thick British accent, so I felt like an idiot. But anyway, I got stationed in Upper Michigan, and I had a weird thing up there that happened that made me really think about there's a little bit more to this.
What do you mean, a weird thing in Michigan?
I dated this girl, and she was very nice. Her parents weren't quite ready for... She was white, and their parents weren't quite ready for dating a black man. And she had an argument with her mom. And what happened was she stayed the night, and something weird happened. And in the morning, she was just like, "Take me home now. I didn't know you were into voodoo and all that other stuff." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And long story, but she had her high school ring on my dog tags. All right. So looped in. And she's like, "Give me back my ring." And I'm like, "Okay, if we're through, we're through."
Right.
So I tried to give her back her ring, and the ring's not there. So I'm like, "Oh, crap. How do I pull this off?" So I was like, "Hey, I'll get you your ring and whatever." In my head, just go to the school, order a new ring, no problem. They're like, "No, you didn't go to this school. You can't order a ring." And so I was like, "Okay, that failed." So months went by, didn't see her, and finally she goes, "Give me back my ring. You haven't given me back my ring yet." So I was like, "Okay," and so it's got to be about a good 8-9 months. And if you've been to Upper Michigan,
I have.
Snow everywhere.
Everywhere.
Right? So I said, "Oh, I'll go to the police station and see if anybody's seen anything." Picked up, whatever. So I call. I give him a description of the ring. And he's like, "You need to come in now." And I was like, No, you don't understand. I need to know if you found it. He goes, "Logan, you really need to come in now." So I'm like, what is going on? So I stomp all the way over to the police station. I get in there, and he said, describe the ring. And I'm describing it to him. And all of a sudden, he produces this girl's ring. So I was like, yeah, that's it. Where'd you find it? I'm thinking problem solved.
You're relieved. You're
I'm
like,
relieved,
oh,
all
yes.
those things, right?
But why so hastily did I need to get here?
Right. So this is the part that really got weird. He calls this airman over and he says, tell him where you found the ring. While I was on the phone with the desk sergeant telling him about the ring, that airman walked in and said, I just found this, and handed him the ring. And the question was, well, where did he find it? He found it directly in front of the police station. He stepped on it in the snow. I was like, what? And so they all thought I was lying about the ring.
Directly in front of,
He was directly in front of the police station. It was snow. He stepped on it. And it was like, what is that?
What is that? Yeah.
And dipped down and he saw this shiny thing, picked it up, and it was her ring.
And you had never been to that police station?
I had never been to that police station at all. So I was like sitting there, and of course, I give her the ring. She goes, I knew you loved me and you want me back. And so I was like, duh. So I kind of was like, don't want to go back here, And the funny thing was, years later, back in like 2018, she found me on Facebook. And she goes, you got to tell me what happened that night. And I was like, oh, let's not go through this again because I don't have any answers for you. But that was pretty much the majority of stuff that happened from when I was a child going up into young adulthood. But then when I was doing the program,
This is the film. For anyone who doesn't know, the program is the film that James Fox made.
Yes.
Okay.
So James did the movie, and what it was I was on the task force, and I was helping Lou Elizondo and company, and Leslie Keene and James Fox were around, and I said I didn't want to be in front of the camera, and Leslie was like, hey, you just say a few words. And she said, just talk about it at the unclassified level, what you can say and what you can't. And I said, okay, I agree. I'll do it. But what was funny was, when the movie was done, James said, could you look at something for me? I want you to see the whole movie as it's supposed to be. And I got hit like someone slapped me across the face. When I left Upper Michigan, I flew to Philadelphia and saw my mom, family, whatever. Before I flew over to Germany, there used to be a big Army exercise called Reforger, Return of Forces Back to Germany. We used to do this annually every year.
Okay.
Right? So I got on one of the last flights doing this because this is 1990 now. And, the wall had come down. And so there was no reason to, we're going to go take the Fulda Gap and all that other stuff.
Right.
So I buy me a couple cheesesteaks. I'm on the plane. And we're coming down between Iceland and Scotland, closer to the Scotland side. The sun is just coming up. We're flying towards Frankfurt, Maine, in Germany. And I'm eating my cheesesteak. I remember distinctly some guy in the back of the plane going, I smell cheesesteak. I smell cheesesteak. I'll pay $20 for that cheesesteak. I was like, I'm not stupid. Yo, I'll give you a hoagie. And he takes it, right? So I get my $20. So I'm chomping away on my cheesesteak, and I look out the window, and there is something outside the window zigzagging. I mean, it is all over the sky. It is not in one place. It's going in the clouds and coming out on another vector. And I'm like, what is that? And I'm thinking, I'm just cross-training from crew chief to intel. So, I'm going to get read in on some super cool secret stuff. That's what I'm saying. So all of a sudden, I'm trying to pretend like, it's nothing. Yeah, it's just whatever.
You kind of go into military mode.
Yes.
Right?
I'm just kind of chill, but the guy next to me, the guy eating the hoagie, we're all seeing it through the window, right? And so when this thing disappears, we're just like, well, it is what it is.
What does it look like?
It looks like a diamond head, but 4-dimensional. It was like a rhomboid or whatever you would call it.
Yeah.
And it was the way the light was hitting it from the clouds and everything. It was turning like dark and then kind of grayish, dark and kind of grayish as the light was hitting it. So I was like, what is, oh, yeah, and I didn't know about the Belgian wave at the time.
Right.
Because that was right at that time.
Right. Literally.
You're right. And so I didn't know about it. And this was January of 1990. Because I took the flight over, I think it was like January 4th of 1990 to get to my new base, which was going to be Bitburg, Germany.
Okay.
And so I get there and I wait a while and talk to people. Hey, have you seen anything weird? Nobody says anything. So finally I go to my weapons and tactics officer and I go, so when am I going to learn about the weird thing out there? And they're like, what weird thing? And they made me feel stupid. I'm like, the ziggy-zaggy.
The craft that,
Yeah.
can just do things that make no sense.
Right. And that's what I'm like, so obviously it's not my base because we were F-15Cs. We do the air-to-air thing. That's it. So not much going on there. And I go off to Desert Storm. As your buddy Gene there, we talk about, I said the whole point of going to Desert Storm was, it's not that I wanted to fight. It's just that I went to this intel school and I wanted to know if all the stuff they were teaching me, if it actually worked.
Right.
You're like, why do you do this way? Why do you do that way? Well, because, of this and because of that. And so I'm like, okay, send me to Desert Storm.
So you were trying to put it into practice?
Yes.
To see if, because it's one thing to learn about it in a book. It's another thing to apply it to real world tactics.
100%.
Right? So I respect that.
Yeah. So we go, obviously Desert Storm, we win and things are over. So I come back at Bitburg and it just so happens a British AWACS, this is the aircraft with the big dome on the top.
Yes.
The big radar. So British AWACS lands at my base and they're coming in for a briefing and all of a sudden they're looking at me going, you're one of us. What are you doing with the Yanks? And I'm like, long story, blah, 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 blah. And they say, why don't you come fly with us? So I was like, sure. My boss says, fine. He said, you're already on flying status and everything. Go for it. So I go for it, and I get up there with them, and we're flying Central Europe. And I said, what's the thing out there that does the ziggy-zaggy thing? And at first, they're like, Logan. Come on, you know. I was like, no, I don't know. Come on, just talk to me. So finally, they pull out this tape, and there's this, you can see all the aircraft just on the screen, and then you see this thing come right through the middle. It's like 4 or 5 jumps, and it's gone off the screen, and I'm like, whoa, what was that? And he goes, Logan. I was like, no, I don't. And he goes, that was your SR-71 before he got retired, because it's 1990. I think he got retired like 89 or something like that.
Right.
So we kind of laughed about that, and I said, but no, that's not the one I'm interested in. And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, the one that does the ziggy-zaggy in and out, all over the place, all over the sky. And then he looks at the other technician, and the other technician says, okay. He pulls out another thing, and he plugs it in, and he goes, does it look like this? And sure enough, they've got this bad boy all over the sky. Every sweep of the radar, I think a sweep was like 12 seconds. I can't remember the exact number.
But there's intervals of seconds that it...
You can see everybody else just doing this little jump, minuscule jump, and this thing is all over the place. It's just...
Right, because you're expecting, for anyone who doesn't, and I don't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry, but when a radar is sweeping, you're expecting to see a linear path for the aircraft. This thing is jumping side to side.
Right. And it has no ID on it. Everybody else has an ID.
Because every
commercial aircraft, military aircraft, whatever.
Transponder.
ID. So I was so excited. You're
like, vindication.
I was like, that MF right there. Right? And they were like, I was like, look, let's not start that
Stop
again.
telling me I know.
Right? I was like, who is that?
Let's pretend I don't know.
Right. And exactly, and they looked at me and they said, you really don't know? And I go, no. And they said, we don't know either. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know? And he says, we don't know. He said, we call this guy on the radio. He never responds. We have vectored aircraft towards him, and he zips away at the last minute. and he's all over the place. So I'm like, what? I'm trying to wrap my head around this. What do you mean you don't know? And they're like, he's an unidentified. We've just assumed it was you Americans playing with us, and it's one of your programs that you don't want to tell us about. And he had the tape. It was zipping all over the place, right?
What?
So I'm like, tell me more. And he goes, what is there to tell you? I said, so hold on. I said, you're British AWACS. You are at RAF Waddington. I think that's where they were at the time. They might still be the same squadron and everything. I said, so you're telling me your whole squadron knows about this? He goes, yeah. And he goes, nobody talks about it because we lose our jobs. All right. And I'm like, hold on. So I said, so you're not the only crew that has seen this, but you're a British AWACS. And he goes, yes. What's your point? And I go, pretty much AWACS all work on the same principle. So there's a U.S. AWACS, there's a British AWACS, there's a NATO AWACS, there's a Russian, there's a Japanese, there's an Israeli AWACS. So you're probably all seeing the same
unidentified
object, something out there. And he says no, but he's nodding his head at the same time. And I'm like looking at him and I'm like, got it.
He's trying to tell you.
Right? So I get off there and I don't really say anything to anybody. But let's jump forward to the program with James Fox.
Pull that in a little bit.
Sorry. Let's go forward to the program with James Fox. And what was going on there was that James decides to let me see the whole tape of the program preview.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Right? Yeah. And he talks about the Calvine stuff. And I look at it and I was like, whoa, that's the thing that I saw out my window. And I called him back. I was like, dude, when was this? And he's telling me, I think it was August of 1990. And what I saw was January of 1990. All right?
Are you suggesting that the Calvine UFO is the same thing you saw, not only with your own eyes, but then confirmed via a third party in the military?
It is the same exact thing that I saw. However, the one thing I can't confirm was if it was the same object that was on that tape or what they were showing me. But it would lead me to believe that it was.
It's close and it's
right. Because remember, around that time, there was also the Belgian flap or the Belgian wave that they talked about.
Correct.
With the triangular object.
Jesus Christ.
So nobody could tell me which one was which. I was like, what does this thing look like? And the cops in Eupen, Belgium, they were talking about the triangle with the red dot in the middle, the three lights on the edge, whatever. That's not what I really saw because I was kind of looking down onto the aircraft.
Right.
From my aircraft, I was kind of looking slightly down onto this other thing.
Right, you have a completely different
appearance and everything.
Yeah, you have a completely different vantage point than someone who's seeing it on the ground. You're seeing it from almost level, but you're a little bit higher in elevation, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And this thing's zipping in and out of the clouds.
It's in and out of the clouds. And what really got me was I probably wouldn't have paid that much attention to it. It was just the fact that when it went into the clouds, it came out on a different vector.
What?
So that's what was throwing me off. I was like, you'd see something go in and, come out. I've been a flyer for, good portion of my military career.
At this point, how long had you been in the military?
I had been in 5 years.
So but in 1990, when you saw this, you'd been in for 5 years already.
Yeah.
You're not fresh out of boot.
That's right.
You are a... Some people don't even last 5 years because they do 4 and done.
Right.
Right?
Yes, exactly. So
right?
I'll make you laugh here because up until that point, everywhere that I'd been, I'd always flown at night. When I came to the U.S., it was flying at night. When I went to basic training, we flew in the evening, so we landed at night. All right. So when I was a B-52 crew chief, we had a really cool major that had flown in Vietnam, and he said, hey, which plane would you fly on? I was like, I don't know about that one, but my plane's ready. And he's like, well, let's go. And I was like, what do you mean let's go? He goes, get on the plane with me. And I was like, sir, I don't fly, if I have to. He goes, you're in my Air Force and you don't fly? This is unacceptable. So next thing you know, I'm on this flight with him and I'm having the time of my life. And he says, put in for, to get signed up for being a flying crew chief. So I'm seeing how all these aircraft maneuver, and this thing that was flying around acted like no other aircraft that I could tell you.
So it's going in, you have a triangle,
Yes.
right? So it's going into the cloud.
Yes.
And what you're saying is it is coming out at up here.
So, yes.
Because it's coming in at a different
let's
vector.
Let's say it's going in at 40 degrees. It could come out at 180 degrees off.
Right. You're saying it's essentially, it's doing something that it defies what we understand as physical, how physics work with flight.
100%.
Because that shouldn't be possible for it to be, because I don't need to explain why that's impossible.
Yeah, and I was trying to see if it was like an altitude problem, so it went in low, came out high, but it was always that it kind of went in like, let's say it was at 30,000 feet.
Yep.
It stayed at 30,000 feet, but it would probably be 1 minute it's heading, northeast on a northeast vector, but then all of a sudden it pops back out and it's now heading on a, southeast vector. Or,
right.
I would say maybe you're seeing a difference of maybe a 60 degree turn.
Yeah.
But it always seemed like it was inside the cloud. Every now and then it would do it outside the cloud. It would look like it bounced off something. Just bing and came back again, and you're like...
So like instantaneous acceleration in different different directions, which again, we can't do.
100%.
You need... how long do you need in a jet fighter to do a complete turn?
A tactical fighter can turn pretty easy. Something like the SR-71, it took like 2 states, if I remember, to do a turn like that. And they're doing an actual turn. This thing just kind of looked like...
It's bopping.
Yeah.
Like a pool ball off a bank.
That's a good way to put it. Just bopping off the side. And
that's crazy.
So we're looking at all this and just trying to understand it.
When you're looking at this thing...
Yes.
I just got to ask, we have so much we can get into. We're just at the beginning here. When you seen this thing, I know you said you're eating a sub, or a hoagie as you call it, but
from Philly, it's either
I know,
it's a hoagie. I got a message, and not Pat Sergino's either.
Heard. A lot of people report that they feel connected or that sightings are specifically for them. Anything like that?
I did not get that feeling.
No.
Like it was like someone was doing a demonstration for me or some kind of connection.
Do you think that it was using do you think that it was using was it ours or was it not ours? If your best guess.
I don't think it was ours. Just because of the way it was acting. I mean, that's 1990, and I keep thinking about what technologies did we know of, or, because think of it this way. When we heard about the F-117, we kind of heard about it a little bit before we saw it.
Yeah.
The B-2, the B-1, we heard about all these things. This thing, we ain't heard nothing about, and it's been since 1990.
Right.
Nothing. So something that I think is ours, I think eventually some of that technology leaks out and you see it in some way, shape, or form. Nothing like this has ever come anywhere.
Right.
So, and trust me, I was looking. I mean, when we were because we're a NATO unit in Germany, every now and then we go over to Hungary or some other NATO unit or whatever because the wall had just come down. We're trying to...
So the Berlin Wall came down. There was much more of an, like a, let's collaborate and let's...
Yeah. So one of the squadrons was the Tiger Squadron. I think it was a 53rd Squadron. So what they would have is they would have what is called the NATO Tiger Meet. And that would be all the squadrons in NATO that have a tiger as a mascot. They would all get together and do their little showing off,
Yeah.
So when the wall came down, there was a unit, I think either in Hungary or Czechoslovakia, somewhere, their squadron was a mascot. And so they had the MiG-29 Fulcrum. So it was our guys' first time getting to see the fulcrum, and they're getting to look at an
The
F-15. So we're doing all this exchange, but there was nothing out there that fit this weird zigzag all over the sky type thing. It was
next
just
gen,
yeah,
like next gen of next gen.
yes, and through all the years since I've seen this thing, I've been waiting for something just to say, yeah, that's it. Because I have a friend, his dad, he's an F-14 pilot. He's retired,
Yeah.
done that, been there. And he asked his dad, he said, Dad, have you ever seen a UFO? And his dad said, no, never saw a UFO in my life, whatever. And then when the story came out with Lou Elizondo, he was on the phone saying, I told you we saw that sucker. And he's like, whoa, Dad, you told me you have never seen a UFO ever in your life. And his dad said, he goes,
He's like, yeah, I'm lying
I've
to you.
never seen a UFO, but UAPs, I saw those all the time. That was how he got around it, And it was just kind of funny. So we're like, dude.
His dad
He got bamboozled by his own father.
His dad used the government
Nomenclature to get around it.
He used the tactic of the government switching the moniker so that.
And the only reason why we did that was because, the term had been used before.
Stigma, yeah.
Yeah, but Jay Stratton thought it would be better to change that so that the stigma wouldn't follow it around.
And we will definitely be getting to Mr. Stratton in today's interview. So going back, is there anything else about this? So you didn't see anything. This craft, still to this day, you have not seen anything in the public sector or in the military sphere that does that.
Right.
Now, I think there was, so when you saw the Calvine photo, that really
that
did something to you?
It was like a punch in the gut. And I immediately called James and I was like, dude, tell me more about this. Tell me what's not in the video because I want to know more. And he was, he told me all this. I listened to the stuff that was in the video. I, had a chance to process it. The guys that went missing and all that other stuff. I was like,
it is a weird story.
It is. And it's definitely a weird story. And I said, I saw this, James. This is the exact same error. And he's like, you're kidding me. And I was like, no. I said, I saw this. I said, this is one of those defining moments when you say, okay, the thing I saw as a child, I just kind of threw that to the wayside. But when I saw that one in 1990, that was one of those things that you kind of mark on the board and said, I got to come back to this one to find out what's going on. And because as the years went by and I never saw anything, it just kind of cemented it. This is something I need to look back into.
It's special.
Yes.
Right? And now hindsight is always going to be 2020. You're connecting it to Calvine, this moment of wait a second, this is this is it. This is all it.
Yeah.
So the Calvine story is odd. There's been some contention. There was the no photograph public up until a couple years ago.
Right.
Right. The photograph comes out, and a lot of people had touted this as the single best piece of photographic evidence. I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think there's so much that you can, there's too much there for debunkers. It's a rock popping out of water. Right. It's reflection of the water. It's angular, not deception, but there's too much for debunkers to point to where people aren't going to be like, well, that's it. Disclosure. That's it right there. Right? But you being who you are, and this is a weird dichotomy that I've gotten into, that the credibility that people bring to something, right? Inherently with your background. I almost believe the Calvine photo more now that you are saying that's what you saw.
Well, thanks. It kind of threw me because I got there in 1990, and before I left, that's when I heard about the Belgian wave. So Belgium was not too far from us. So, Bitburg, we were close to Luxembourg too. So I remember going over to the town of Eupen and I was asking questions. And And, you know, this officer was like, oh, that's this other police station and whatever. And, you know, I felt like I was getting to run around. But finally someone just said, he said, yeah, he said, we saw these things all over the place. And he told me a really weird story. And I've always wondered, where does that fit into the bigger picture? They said there was a UFO, a triangular black object. He said all the animals went quiet. Okay, so he said there's two officers walking down a street. Everything gets quiet, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And he said all of a sudden they look up. There's this giant triangle above them. The three white corners.
Oh, yeah.
But the red part was missing.
Okay,
Right?
the center light.
It was off, right? And I've heard stories where they said the red is a sensor. It goes into. They've seen it go into the water and pull stuff up. But here's the unique thing that the guy told me. He said,
And this is a police officer saying this?
police officers.
Okay.
And he said this is what they were told. He didn't see this himself. It's just what they were told. But he said there was a specific place where this thing is coming down this road, and the red dot is missing. And then the red dot, ball, I shouldn't call it a dot. The red ball is missing, and it comes out of a building and connects back up into the thing, and the thing just keeps going down. And he said what was interesting about that was he said the building that it came out of was an old folks' home. And I've been trying to figure out what's the connection to that. Were they monitoring somebody? Was there kind of like how they do abductions? Could that have been the thing that didn't? I mean, there were so many rumors that you could come up with on, or not rumors, but hypotheses on that you could come up with. And I had
All
nothing.
all you have left is to speculate.
Right.
You're like, what the fuck is that?
So I'm like, what's the connection between them and an old folks home? Could there have been?
I think you're asking the wrong question.
So go ahead.
Who?
Well, that's
Who in the old folks'
yes,
home?
Yes. I would
have looked into who's there, because you got some military guy from back in the day there.
Yeah, but I didn't know that much about all this stuff.
I know.
And it wasn't about because the two things that came into my mind was, is it an old folks person or was it a member of the staff that this thing could have been?
Fair.
And I just kept thinking about that, and I was like, do you know where this whole folks place is? And the guy said no, and everything, and I was like, so when I left Germany, I was kind of like, I really need to know more about this, but it just kind of went away because it was an interesting thing.
You know what?
But I had no facts on anything other than what I saw.
I mean, an officer telling you this, like, again, and I want to ask you about this, but there's this dichotomy of like police, the guys like Gene,
They're like first responders,
Vito, yeah,
trained observers,
that when they say something, like the public list is, I think at least we owe you guys it to listen, because you are trained observers. You have that. Jesus, if there's anyone I'm gonna trust, it's you, right?
Yeah.
So, real quick, I'm sorry, because I do want to keep a linear format here, because I'll just keep talking about these sightings all day. What I do think that this sums up pretty well is that this is not a United States only thing.
No, definitely.
Everything you're talking about happened outside of the United States so far, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All cases of yours are outside of the United States?
Except for the thing with the ring. Other than that.
Right.
All
right.
the objects that I saw, everything
So
was
again,
outside.
this is not just a United States phenomenon. So what you did say was that you were transitioning into intelligence.
Yes.
What does an all-source intelligence analyst actually, what does that mean? And what do you do day to day? I don't think most people know what that job is.
So what there's different intelligence.
Yeah.
There's signals intelligence. That's what you would tell NSA. They're looking for any type of communications stuff out there. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's communications and it's dealing in RF, they're interested in it. All right. Then there's imagery intelligence, and that's NGA. And then there's what you would call human intelligence, and that could be DIA, that could be CIA, whatever. And then what there is there's a weird one that kind of brings everything together. It's called MASIN, Measurements and Signatures Intelligence. And the best way I could explain it to you is think of Star Trek. Whenever Mr. Spock puts his head up to that scope and looks down and says, "Sensor say," all right, it's a MASIN thing. It's not seeing. So instead of looking at the actual object, he may be looking at the thermal trail that it leaves behind to tell you that there's, because the thing may be invisible. So he's seeing it through non-traditional sensors that would give you an indication that there's something there.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha. So,
Yeah.
not on the not visible spectrum.
Right, it could be, right? So an all-source analyst, his job is to look at everything, put the picture together, and then tell either the pilot or the general or whoever his customer is, here's what's going on. So one of the frustrating things is, for NGA, they're imagery analysis, so they do imagery and video, all right?
So this is like kind of like what Dylan Borland did.
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
So when they talk, all right, they would say, we examined the video or we examined the image and we didn't see anything unusual, all right? Well, part of my job is I got to go talk to the guy and go, what made you image it in the first place? Because there had to be something out of the norm, because this just looks like a normal. And I tell you, when you talk to some of these people that have seen things, there's no doubt in their mind, all right? They're frustrated and they're very emotional, because it's one thing to attack someone's belief system, aliens versus, angels or whatever. But it's another thing when they were in a group setting, they all saw the same thing, and this thing did what it was doing unusual, and then someone took a picture of it, and because sometimes these things, it seems that they know when they're being watched. They're doing all this weird stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like, let me get my camera. You go to click, and all of a sudden it starts flying straight and normal, and you're like, well, that's not what it was doing before, It was doing something else, like the zigzaggy thing or whatever. Now it's flying straight and normal. And then it just goes off into the sunset, and you're like, what the hell was that? But then you look at your buddies and you're like, did you see that? Yeah, we saw that.
So telling someone they didn't see what they saw is arguably harder than
if they've had a true experience and it struck something inside of them. Trust me, they know what they saw. When I was at Contact in the Desert, my first thing was, I said, everyone was asking me about disclosure, and I'm an all-source analyst, okay? So I look at everything, the MASIN, the SIGINT, the imagery, the everything else that comes up, and I say, what's going on? What did you see? How did you see this? And you got to play devil's advocate, but next thing you know, you start seeing them. If you look in their eyes, you can see them reliving the moment and all the confusion that is going through their heads about what they saw. And so you kind of back off a little bit because you don't want to press them too much. But a lot of these things, as the all-source analyst, you kind of go, okay, I've debriefed the guy. I've seen the imagery. Was there any SIGINT caught? Was there any acoustics or anything like that? What was something that is out of the norm that this person caused this person to videotape or go after what it was that he was looking at? For Dylan, it was he saw this thing with his eyeball, all right?
Right.
So obviously it affected him some kind of way, all right? And the funny thing is, if you look at the MUFON or NUFORC database for Langley Air Force Base and Langley NASA,
Yep.
multiple triangles have been seen in that area.
Yeah,
Which gives a little bit of credence to what he's telling you. He's, hey, I saw something here.
Right.
And, they blow him off. And one of the frustrating things is Gene and Vito and, other first responders and observers can attest to. Imagine this. You are the best of the best. You're a Top Gun pilot. You've done it. You've done it all. You've lived it. All right? And the moment you see a UFO and you report it, you've lost all credibility in the squadron. And it should not be that way, because you've depended on us for everything before this. But now, just because we saw a UFO and we giving you all the specs and everything, now all of a sudden people are like questioning what you say. They're re-examining your work and all this other stuff. I mean, when I became part of the UAP Task Force, and the first time I went into someone's office and said, I need you to review this video. I got a call like...
Was that the Syria video?
No. Something like that. But it was, someone called me, the guy called me back and goes, what the hell do you have me looking at here? And I was like, well, I need your help to help me figure it out, right? And I go into his office, and there's like 10 people looking around the screen trying to figure out what the hell's going on, right? And we're all throwing different things at it, seeing what, like Jello sticking to the wall. Which one sticks? Which ones make sense? And I remember there was this other office that I walked into probably the first 4 or 5 visits. They all it was funny. I'm glad I got a good sense of humor. They all reached into their cupboard. They all pulled out aluminum hats, put them on, and started playing the X-Files music, right? And I was like, you guys, But after like the 5th, 6th visit, I come in there, they're all in there with me. They're all trying to figure this out.
Do you ever notice that about this topic? It's one of those ones where before you like really, like, I call it this moment of conversion, right? Yours happened either when you were a kid, when you saw the iron looking thing, or in 1990 with the Calvine and how that all, or sorry, I don't mean to call it the Calvine, but the triangle.
Mm-hmm.
You go from like this state of it could be there, you don't really know, like when if I told you it was raining outside right now, you're going off my word. Until you walk out and feel the rain on your skin,
yes,
you don't truly know. Right? So when someone has that moment of conversion, then you see them kind of switch.
Yes.
Right? Then they go, I need to figure this out. And it's the weirdest thing, because a lot of these people dedicate the rest of their lives to figuring it out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's weird.
Yeah.
And I just find it odd. It's like no other topic, no other thing does that to people the way that this does.
Yes.
And I'm talking about the phenomenon in general.
Yes.
Right? Not just UFOs.
Yeah.
But this has a way of grabbing you and just never letting go.
Yes.
I've seen people go. I interviewed this NASA whistleblower. This guy was the chief of aerospace medicine for NASA.
I think I remember that.
Greg Rogers.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm only doing one interview. Dude, the dude was just on coast to coast for like the 8th time. And I'm like, yeah, one interview, right? Yeah. So it's just, it always is like that.
So
shout out, Greg.
I've got a good example to tell you. There's a guy, he's was a Marine. And
is a Marine.
Yeah. There's not a retired Marine. They're just Marines, right? Best of the best. Love them. And so he's telling me that he kept seeing this thing out of the corner of his eye. He was like, I saw something and then it disappeared. I saw something and then it disappeared, right? So he comes home on vacation. And he's having like they got a barn, a fire going and everything and all. He's home on vacation. All his friends come to visit him. They're all gonna chill and do marshmallows and hot dogs and burgers and whatever. And he said all of a sudden, this light pops up and it comes down. And it comes down right in front of him and then turns on its side and swings like a pendulum in front of him to where they can see someone in the screen, in on the craft, right? And they're all looking at each other going, and we're not going to talk about this, right? And so he's like, we're not talking about this. So after, he's having nightmares about something being in his room and observing him and all this stuff. So he's like freaking out. So he goes to the military psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, to talk about what he's going through. And they were so busy trying to convince him that what he saw was not real, right? That he said he felt like he was going to go into a straitjacket the way they were talking to him. Look, dude, your senses aren't there. You had a momentary lapse. You know, this is PTSD, all these things. And he said, Logan, the only anchor I had was those other people that were there with me. That was what kept me settled. So he said, I could no longer stay in the Marines because this guy was so convinced that what I saw.
Okay, maybe he isn't a Marine anymore.
You know,
if they treated him like that.
But this happens all the time.
When in reality, you know what that guy needed?
What?
Someone to grab him and say, I believe you.
Yes. I mean, he's got it now.
Right.
And he had it with his friends, but he needed someone that was
that's what he went
outside of
for.
it
Exactly.
to reach in and say, I got you. And yes, what you saw was real. And for a lot of the guys, that is not happening.
Well, you don't even have to say it's real, right? Just all they want to hear in that moment is someone say, I believe you.
Yes. 100%.
Right? I believe you. I'm not saying it's true, right? I'm not digging myself into that corner, but I believe you.
Yes.
Right? They just want reassurance that they're not losing their fucking mind.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's what we need to change in the military, is we need to make sure that if someone sees something that is out of the ordinary,
yes,
instead of leaking their files, their medical records to some loser journalist
yes,
who's going to run that
yeah,
and you know, just like do a disgraceful thing to someone who served our country.
100%. And you know someone that I really want to give credit to? The congresswoman that was there for the Phoenix Lights when she tried to talk to Governor Symington and all those other guys.
Yeah, I think it's Francis Borowitz.
Right, and the newspaper just played with her and just tore her down, right?
They ruined her, yeah.
I would like to go after the person that wrote those articles. Because to me, she's a hero, all right? She tried to do what the citizens wanted her to do, find out what was going on. And nobody stood with her. You know? And when she tried to collect all the videos and everything, you know, someone took them all.
From Dr. Lynn Katai.
That's all evidence of some type to say there's more going on here than you think. And we need to pay attention to it.
Speaking of the Phoenix Lights, would it be possible to do you guys think that it would be possible, talking to both of you two, that it would be possible to reopen an investigation into something like that? Because it was on mainland United States.
It should be. It definitely should be.
Yeah?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, you know, I think we're at a juncture now that somebody like you.
Have you already done that?
I didn't, because as part of the task force, we did not do anything stateside. We were looking at things overseas. Hopefully law enforcement would bring us cases, and they did at some points, because we were comparing. If they happened over a military base, yes. Because that's
still
right, that's
government property.
But
nuclear facilities, anything like that would still be...
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I will tell you, I should have mentioned this earlier. My ex-wife and I, we were coming back from Phoenix during the Phoenix Lights. And we started seeing all these cars pull over, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And so what happened was, got out of the car, tried to look, and I wasn't seeing anything. But then all of a sudden, I noticed that way off in the distance, there's something kind of blocking out the stars, and then the stars were reappearing, and I'm like, okay, this is real. This is real. There's going to be an announcement tomorrow. Tomorrow. And then the next day, nothing.
Hold up. Did you just say that you were in the vicinity of Phoenix when it went down?
Yeah, I was living in Tucson, and we were heading back to Tucson.
What the fuck?
But I can't tell you what I saw. I just know that there was something out there that was getting in front of the stars, and I was seeing something, and it looked huge, and I'm sitting there going like, huh, wow, there's going to be an announcement tomorrow. Yeah. And
Nothing came.
nothing came. So I called, so I had a friend up at Luke Air Force Base, and I called, and I said, dude, so there's two interesting points to this. One, the unit that they said was dropping flares, I had a friend in that unit, and I said, dude, so what's up? And he goes, yeah, Logan, I can't really talk to you, but we were just told to say that, yeah, we were dropping flares. So that was the first thing that got me. And then when I called up to Luke to talk to my friend, he goes, dude, he goes, let me tell you, he said, we launched the fighter aircraft. He said, when they landed, they went immediately into a debrief. We were told to shut up, not answer any questions. But he said those pilots looked scared shitless.
Like they saw a ghost.
Yeah, something happened up there. We're not sure if it was the size, did it do something, whatever. But I don't really talk about it that much because there was no meat to it other than just me seeing something there, and I even doubt myself sometimes when I say
What about all the other evidence that other people saw? You are part of one of the largest actually the largest known mass sighting of all time.
Yes, but I can't definitely say, oh, the thing went over me and I saw this.
Right, but you were in the vicinity. You did see something that was odd. You just can't.
Right.
But other evidence.
Yes.
Validates.
But it was enough for me to go, there's going to be a call tomorrow and someone's going to make an announcement. And then when there was nothing, it made me start doubting myself.
So at that time, 1997, you had been in for 13 years.
Yeah.
You're not.
How old do you think I am?
I just did the math real quick. What?
Nothing. I'm just laughing.
I just did the math real quick because if you're in for 5 years in 1990, that's 7 years later, 13, right?
Yeah.
How old are you? No. Don't say. I actually thought did I not mistake it and say I thought you were more my age, 30, because I'm 33, and I was like, I think he's closer to my age than yours, and Gene was like, no, and I was mixing it up with Dylan Borland. Because I've been watching the Jesse Michaels interview.
Yeah.
But regardless, so I don't think you're old, man. Plus, I look like I'm 12 and I'm 35, so I don't really judge anyone.
My thing though was just that there's all these things that pointed that there was something that happened, and yet we're telling the public no. And
it's
I
another
think it was
triangle.
the first real time, the Phoenix Lights, right? Yes, it started back since 1947 with Roswell, whatever. But I think the Phoenix Lights was a defining moment when the public said, can't trust the government.
Right.
Just flat out.
Well, and it had been building too.
Yes.
Right?
It had been. But that was I think that was when, there's that point where the bell curve, this is when it went over and they were like, yeah.
It's like, no, you just overtly gave me the exactly what I needed to know I can't trust you.
Yes.
You made a mockery of me.
100%.
You openly mocked me to my face with this Fife Symington guys being told to bring an alien out. Like, you told us, like, I don't know if you remember, you probably do better than I do because I was only 4 years old, but they were telling people like, hey, we're having a press conference. They didn't say like, guys, like, don't, they weren't like, hey guys, we figured it out. It's really nothing, but we're going to do a press conference.
Yes.
They were preparing people for like this serious press conference.
Yes.
They brought an alien and it was just like, it was so blatantly like disrespectful to the people that they just couldn't deal with that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's a hard thing once you know that the government doesn't have your best interest and is actually willing to throw you under the bus.
Right.
That's a scary thing.
Yes.
Right?
So I'm 100% on board with what you're saying. I just felt I would like to see in the future that Francis gets
Fran-
vindicated and everybody, holds her up to a higher, because she is one of the few people out there that was trying to do what the citizens said she should do.
Yeah.
She held it, and she got criticized for it and destroyed for it, and that's a no. But it's the same thing, like, again, when I was telling you an example of a Top Gun pilot or somebody that's in the know. If you're famous, you can kind of get away with it because you're famous, whatever.
Right.
But if you're not,
Like Kurt Russell was there. Kurt Russell reported it.
Yes.
Reported it. He was a pilot.
Yes.
That saw it in the air.
Yes.
Like, that's crazy.
Yes.
And he talks about it now. But you don't find it weird that you were in the vicinity of another triangle?
I don't know what it was. I just know that when we were coming back, I was like, because I remember I was with my wife and I was like, and then I was like, in the head, I'm thinking again, what if this is ours? What if this is something that's ours? And I'm just going to sit there and say, I saw it too and whatever. And I was like, don't say nothing.
Well, you're an analyst. You're just going to sit back and just collect data.
So when I got, and nobody was, it was the talk, but there was no.
The media ate it up.
Yeah, there was the talk and everything, but there was nothing definitive that was coming out of it. And I'm like, people are deliberately manipulating the news, so to speak. And I was like sitting there going, there's so much. One of the things that I really do dislike about this whole thing, the whole UAP, paranormal, cryptid, but most of the UAP issue, is that we're so hungry for information that when one bit of information pops out, there is so much noise you can't tell what is going on. And I thought it was very interesting what J.D. Vance said about conspiracies the other day, or a couple weeks ago.
On Joe?
That the way you deal with conspiracies is you flood all the information so that the people don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what's true. After a while, a large part of this becomes circular reporting. Someone heard it from someone heard it from somebody else, and by the time it comes around, it changed from a triangle to a saucer to a plasmoid to a this.
It's like a game of telephone.
Right, and then 100%, and then you no longer know who the report came from because they forgot. They just got to the juicy bits and passed you the information, and we were dealing with that all the time.
Well, as an intelligence all-source guy, when you specifically are seeing something like that, what does that make you think? How do you approach something like that?
Well, you try to approach everything from a blank slate. You go, what does the evidence say? What did the observers see? So it's what did the observers see? What did the observers hear? How did it make them feel? Lou Elizondo talked about all the different the 5 observables and the 6,
Yep.
But one of the one is the way it makes them feel, and some of them truly felt something unique. Because it's funny that in some of the stories, what they'll see is the victim, or if you want to call them that, the abductee, whatever you want to call them, they would be able to look out of the corner of their eye, see something that looks like a star, and go, they're here, and they're here for me. Saw that several times, right? He's looking out of the corner of his eye, and he's seeing what looks like a star, and all of a sudden, he's just got awareness that it's here for him, right? And I'm sitting there thinking, do they have, this goes back to the implants and stuff. Do they have an implant or is there something else? Because from that far away, if they look like a star, not saying that it's that truly that far away, but even even if you're at 30,000 feet on an aircraft, if you're looking down, that's a lot of people you're covering.
Yeah. And
for you to be able to single out that one guy, I'm thinking there must be something on that guy that you're tuned into. I mean, what if...
Or it's quantum entanglement.
Yes, but what if in this modern era, they're using the same technology as us, just using the cell phone and go, da-da-da-da, oh, yeah, there he is, right there.
Right.
But when you start shifting back in time and that technology didn't really exist, or maybe they existed, but not in a way that was well known to people or are out there. You got to sit there and think, how did they pinpoint this? How did they, you know, when a person moves, do they, I mean, there's a story of a lady that lived in the U.S. in New York, and she moved to like Connecticut, and she said in the phenomena followed her, the hitchhiker thing,
Yeah, the hitchhiker effect.
you know,
And Dr. Roger Lear famously was the implant doctor, right? He would remove implants from people that claimed to have them. And yeah, there was a lot of times where he pulled pulled pieces of metal out of people. Like then you got guys who were in the military and then who was in the military, but then also was in government. Terry Lovelace.
yes,
Do you know the Terry Lovelace story?
yes.
I'm actually trying to get him on the show right now. I really want to talk to him, but
He just befriended me on Facebook.
yeah, his is a fascinating story.
I think all of them are fascinating. If you go back to even when you don't pick these particular characters, right? But like the DOE sector, all right? There was all kinds of things going on. I mean,
That was my bread and butter for most of it.
you know,
Yeah.
you would see. So we would, how do I say this? We would watch things that, imagine this. There's something that's about the size of a football.
Football?
A football, regular rugby's or American
Okay,
football.
not a football field like
Yeah.
most people's. Okay.
Yeah, there's this thing moving, all right?
Okay.
It's about the size of a football. And I get a call, and they're like, "Is this Mr. Logan?" I go, "Yeah." "Are you the guy running the weird desk?" And I'll be like, "Yeah," because that's what everybody asks. "Yeah, could you do this and turn to this channel and da 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 da?" And I go there, and we're watching this thing the size of a football, and it's just going.
It's an orb? What is
It's
it?
like an orb.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just going. Nothing unusual about it. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah? Okay. What's so special about this?" And then I watch it go up to a building, and it just over the top of the building, come down the other side and keep going. And I'm like,
Like 90-degree angle turns?
almost like a 90-degree, I would say. If I remember correctly, there were a couple.
So not like birds like flying and
Right.
just
So, but the thing goes over the top of people, right? In the middle of the night. And they're looking at it in IR. It's just, and what I thought was so unusual was as low as this thing was,
no.
when it went over the top of people, at no point did anybody out there go, "What was that?" It just went right by them. So I was like, that's kind of unusual, you know? And I said, "Okay, what's up, dude? What's going on with this?" He says, "You see how big it is?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "We've been watching it for 3 hours." And we're like, "What?" And he
How
goes,
is it staying in the air?
right. We're like, "How is it in the air this long?"
It can't be a drone.
And that's, so my first thing was, go get my experts. Dude, what is that? "Oh, that's a drone."
Nope.
"Yeah, they've been watching it for 3 hours." "Okay, that's not a drone."
It's not a drone
and then
that we
you
know
start
of.
tearing it apart, and then you're like, "What is this thing?" And then we continue to watch it for another 3 hours.
So 6 hours of observation.
Right. And so what do you do with that? So,
And this thing's moving the whole time?
yeah, it's just, and it's not even going really fast. It's probably doing like 60, 70 miles an hour, just, you know. So you put that in your, I don't know what it is, but it's in my maybe box, right? It's on the plus side more than it is on the negative side. And there was a lot of things like that. So this little bin that we had just kept growing. You know, we'd have guys that would sit there and see things that they're like, "Mr. Logan, what do you think of this?" And, you know, some people would just throw me stuff, no context, no nothing. I was like, "Dude, I can't help you because you're not giving me any context." So then that's when he'll sit there and go, "Okay, we were watching this, do this, and da 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 da." I was like, "Okay, now," I said, "type that up, send it to me with the rest of the report. Now I can try and see if there's something I can do with it."
Now you can chase it down.
Because you can't just go by straight observation, because that could be anything. That could, you know, until I joined the task force, I never knew the amount of information about birds that I could figure out. Right? Because like, okay, how fast does this bird go? Are they in this area? Are they going against the wind? Are they doing this? And you're like, oh God. And albatross stays up how long? And you start learning all these things.
I love birds, man.
Right. So I was like, I said, most people would think I'm a bird watcher now.
A birder, yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta ask, how does an all-source analyst, intel, get recruited into the UAP Task Force by Jay Stratton?
Okay. So Lou Elizondo came out with a story in 2017, November 2017.
Right in the beginning, because it was December, so
Right. So that summer, 2017, my wife had asked me, she goes, what are you going to do when you grow up? Meaning when I retire. And I didn't have an answer for her. And I said, I'd really like to know what all these things are flying around. And we talked about it a little bit. And she goes, well, you do all this crazy stuff for the government. So I'm in. Do what you need to do. And so my idea was to build an app. And on one of these things that I was doing, I was looking at how to counter human trafficking, okay? And we were looking at the I-95 corridor and what could be done, and I came up with this idea of an app. And I went around to everybody to say, hey, I got this app thing, it can do all these cool things, and we could put a dent in the human trafficking. And everybody just wanted money. The idea that you came with a solution, nobody was really interested. And I said, sweetheart, I'm going to modify this thing that I've built. The counter human trafficking thing was called Mindful Guardian. And so I said, I think I'm going to build this app. And then next thing you know, like several months later, I hadn't even started really messing with the app stuff yet. Lou Elizondo's story come out. So I said, my wife goes, if you don't talk to him, you're going to regret it. So I arranged for myself to meet Lou. And I said, I work in a place where I solve problems. I'm an all-source analyst. And if you're talking seriously about the stuff that you're talking about, I would like to help you. And he goes, bet. And I kid you not, I think I saw him on a Friday. And I think that Tuesday, he showed up in my office with an entourage of Jay Stratton, Chris Mellon, and this other bunch of people. I think Jim Semivan was supposed to show up and he didn't. And they came in and I'm like, oh crap, what have I gotten myself into now? Because my boss says, Logan, you're always the one that's always doing the unusual stuff. So what are we doing here? So they came in, briefed, and I was like, sir, if you don't mind, I said, this is fake, this is real, this is real, this is real. And I said, and this thing here, this one's real. And he looked at Lou and he said, and he looks back at me, tell me why you think this is real.
What, are they showing you videos?
They're showing me videos and images.
So they come in with an entourage.
Yeah.
What were you surprised that they were able to get into the building without your?
That was the whole point of the test. The test was.
But what were you
to
doing?
Know if he was real, because the security at where I worked was significant. So if they could get into the building, that would tell me.
It meant that they were serious. What job were you doing at that time?
I can't say where I worked or anything like that. All I can say is I had a job where I was supposed to look at government problems.
Okay.
And think outside the box to see if there was a way that we could provide solutions to their problems.
Can you say if it was in government or was it contracting?
I was a contractor, but I was in this job.
Okay.
And we had congressional money to fix problems.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, I'll just try and do this for Lou, right? And then that way I can kind of figure out some of this other stuff that I really want to know. So I'm like, this real, that's not real, that's real, and this one is real. And all of a sudden, Jay looked at, and Lou looked at me and go, how do you know this one's real? And I said, because I've seen this in other places, this exact same one. And they looked at each other and they said, son of a bitch, they lied to us. And I was like, huh? And he goes, nothing, we'll talk about it later, you know. And I was like, okay. And so they're about to leave, and all of a sudden Jay says something to Lou, and Lou turned back around and said, you're in. And I was like, in what? And he goes, you'll see, you know. And that's kind of how I got into the task force. And
How soon after were you read in?
well, it wasn't really so much a reading in. It was more of a
Okay.
Jay Stratton calling me and said, hey, we're sending you some stuff. Take a look at it. And we were looking at stuff and we're like, holy you know, because now we're seeing the good stuff.
Right, now.
Not what's just in my imagination and based on what I saw.
So what, you know, the stuff that's coming out, you know, ironically, the fifth tranche
Yeah.
dropped while you were here. That might date this episode. I try to keep a lower profile on when people are here, but the fifth tranche just, let's just say it just came out. We won't give a time frame, but it just came out. The videos that we're seeing in these tranches, are these the types of videos you're seeing, or are you saying that there is like 4K video from different types of sources?
What you saw in the tranches, and we're seeing 4K.
Holy shit.
And so remember what I told you about the noise? I don't even pay attention to the tranches until the noise level is dissipated and I see the peak.
So that's the noise.
Yeah. So no, it could be considered the noise. The noise is everybody going, oh my God, look, the government's let this data out, and look, and I see this and I see this, and yeah, could be interesting. But I already know I've seen better, so I'm not going to look at this stuff, right? Because not unless someone comes to me and say, there's something really compelling that you need to look at in this one. And there was one in particular I remember, and this thing was doing some stuff over a period of time, and they only showed a snippet of what it was doing, and you couldn't really make out what the hell it was doing. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't interest me.
Right.
And everybody's like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, I'm not even going to comment on that because I know that there's better out there. And, you know, there's the thing is two things. When it comes to disclosure, everybody keeps talking about disclosure, but all disclosure says in the dictionary is to make something secret known. President Obama, thank you, and Donald Trump, they both said they got a secret briefing. Okay? That's your disclosure. We got a secret briefing. There's something flying around in the sky. We don't know what it is. What we're looking for is confirmation. Confirmation of what we know to be true, right? And I said that at Contact in the Desert. I was like, who in here has seen a UFO? And all these people put their hands up, and I said, do you really need the government to tell you what you've seen? And the answer is no, we don't.
But kind of to circle this back a little bit, remember that guy who left the Marine Corps? I think what the citizens need is they want the government to say, I believe you. Well, right? It's that same thing extrapolated outward. It is confirmation, but it's also just guys, let's get on the same page.
It's not that easy because the government is putting themselves into a corner.
Of course, yeah.
And the thing is this, I truly believe there are some natural security concerns about this whole thing. But however, when you put this stuff out and you're putting it out in the way that we're doing right now, all right, it's a way of easing people. Yeah, it's a way of easing people into the subject matter, but you're not really giving them what they want. And the thing I really want to strike hard on this and say is this. Considering the way this thing has been dealt with over the past years, there is never going to be enough information to satisfy the people because they're going to want more and more and more. And there are certain things that we may not want to let out because of national security concerns.
And listen, I agree with you that like, but I do think there's a difference of like knowing that nuclear weapons exist and understanding that I can't have one,
Right.
right? So it's like I agree that when you give an inch, everyone tries to take a mile.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a quick 20-minute break, so the crew can go to the bathroom and we can take we have an ad read. We'll come back. I really want to dive into the UAP Task Force
Okay.
and some of the stuff that I think you've really I think you have such an interesting you're just someone I could talk to for hours upon hours. So there's no shortage of discussions I would like to have with you. But we'll get into some of the technical stuff about the UAP task force and what do you think of some of these, whistleblowers that are coming forward, how you think we can transition into the next phase of disclosure, and how the app that you're building and currently doing, how that is going to help us integrate into the future world of a post-disclosure environment. So we will be right back, guys. This episode of Total Disclosure is brought to you by Good Feels Cannabis Seltzers. And I'll be honest, this is one of my favorite partners that we've ever had on the show. As I've given up alcohol, I'm very open about this on the show, and I think a lot more people choosing that same path. So if you're looking for something that can truly replace alcohol in any setting, whether you're unwinding after a long day of research, hosting friends, or just want to stay clear-headed and in control, Good Feels delivers a completely different kind of experience. It starts with their 12-ounce stubby bottles of cannabis-infused seltzers. They're crisp, clean, zero sugar, and 0 calories. And they're designed to give you a smooth, fast-acting, elevated feeling without the crash, without the hangover, and without the downsides of alcohol. And if you're more than an at-home mixologist, Good Feels also has fast-acting beverage enhancers. You can add them to literally anything. Sparkling water, mocktails, whatever you like, and create your own customized experience. This isn't about checking out, it's about tuning in, staying present, and upgrading the way that you kick back and relax. And right now, listeners of Total Disclosure get 20% off their order. That's getgoodfeels.com for 20% off exclusive to this audience. Good Feels Cannabis Seltzers. Replace the alcohol, keep the experience, stay in control. All right, everybody, welcome back. We are back from the break. I do want to take this moment to say, if you haven't already, we have been looking into some of the analytics. I think 35% of people who are watching are not subscribed or following the show on their podcast platform of choice. So if you can, take this moment. Make sure you're subscribed to the show or following on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, you can always visit www.totaldisclosure.co, and that is the one-stop shop for everything. If you want, help support the show and help us literally keep the lights on and flying in amazing guests like Lenval today. It really helps us out. If you become a member on either YouTube or Patreon, it's pay what you want and what you think the worth of the show is to you. Everybody gets the same thing. So early access, members only, and all that. So with that being said, let's jump back into the conversation with Lenval. We ended with kind of some of the stuff that you've been doing, working with the UAP Task Force, how you got into it, and how you were approached to kind of join it. So when you join now, you're now in the task force, right?
Yes.
Can you just give me a general overview of what the hierarchy looks like?
Okay. So there's a core group that is Jay Stratton and all the people that he personally said, you're now part of the task force. And then what there is kind of like a partnership with all the other agencies that they have a group to help them. Why? There's two reasons why. One, with the task force, we were never given any money. So it was like leveraging partnerships. Dude, can you help me out? Can you hook a brother up? And then we would go into those organizations and say, could you please exploit this imagery? Could you please look at this? Let me know what you find out, stuff like that. And then, like I said, there was the core group that we were the ones that everything came to first. And we would discuss it among ourselves. And then, because there are some things that just look really weird. And we
Right.
would say, has anybody ever seen anything like this before? All internally. And we'd look at it and say, no, there's too many things that are going on with this one. You can't. Oh, that one? Yeah. If you look at this, and he would show, hey, if you look at this, do this lens, da-da-da-da-da, you get this. Oh, that's what that is. Okay, note to self. So we would get all these requests. Could you look at this? I saw this, whatever. And obviously he couldn't handle them all by himself. So what he would do is he would put it out into the community. The other thing that you really need to know, though, is the task force was not built for you and Gene or me or anything like that. The task force was built to answer a very specific question. What the hell was bugging the crap out of the pilots on the range? Because they had too many near misses. And so the only way they could get attention on this was to file a safety report over and over and over again. Hey, we just had another near mishap. We're going to, sooner or later it's going to happen. Just had another mishap. That's how Admiral Gallaudet got involved. Because on his system, there was a message. They said, does anybody know what the hell's going on the range?
Right.
And I remember in the task force, we had two Navy pilots. We sent them down to Miramar. Not Miramar, sorry. Miramar's California. Oceana, where the F-18s are.
Okay.
Right? Down there in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And we were like, they went there to ask for more questions and whatever. And while they're there, the guys are coming in and they're like, why are you asking us now? It's right out there right now, right on the range. Right there, right now. And so we were like, okay, we got to come up with a way to get this. Because if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but they started flying at like 0600 in the morning. And I think they finished very late at night, like 1200 or 2400 hours, midnight. So on particular days, they would say that thing stayed in the exact same spot for all 18 hours. So what does that?
Stationary against hard wind.
Right, the wind's blowing, and they're like, he's locked in place, right? So we would launch activity to go see what was up. We had an aircraft at our disposal, but it was a propeller-driven doohickey, and it took a while to get there and whatever. By that time, this thing would move away, whatever. But when the pilots were going to go train, they would come out onto the range and go, he's there again, he's over there. So they go this way and go, we're going to go train over here. And they would do all their dissimilar flight things that they would do for, shooting the hand and all that other stuff. And they're coming out of a maneuver, and then all of a sudden, it's right there next to them. And they're like, whoa, did you see that? And we would get all these indications. We would get, it was just driving them crazy. We would try to sit there and go, is there any really talk? Because we wanted something that we could maybe sit there and observe, like maybe put a camera in place.
Right.
So we were looking at Virginia Beach, and we were like, what's the tallest building in Virginia Beach? How far can it see out? And it wouldn't have gotten there. But there's activity. I mean, where I worked, I've told this story before, but where I worked, we actually had I was walking down the hallway, and there were some military guys there. There were two in uniform, one civvies. They're all Navy. And they're eyeing me as I'm walking down the hallway. So I'm looking at, giving that side eye, like, something's up. These guys are looking at me. And then I heard someone say, that's him. So they came straight towards me. They were like, are you Logan? I was like, yes. We're desk? Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, follow me.
What do you want? And, and the guy said, we want to talk to you about what's going on. So I was like, follow me. Let's go back to my office. We didn't even make it to my office. There was a broom closet. They dragged me into the broom closet. And the guy in the civvies looks at me and goes, what the hell's going on? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, Logan, they didn't want to be seen in my office, because stigma and all that stuff. But they're like, what's going on? They said, we've known about these things for 30, 40 years. What is going on? And I'm like, well, there's a new sheriff in town. So I explained the task force, what we're doing. Range filer reports were the reports that we could officially write something up and say this is what's going on. If you wrote up a range filer report, it would show up at our desk, and we could all go through it. and they would, if there was video or anything like that, someone would assign the video with it and all the stuff. And I had guys telling me, they said, while they were in Miramar, there would be an aircraft carrier that would show up. All right, they're going off to the Middle East. This thing would follow them to the Middle East every day. It's sitting up there in the sky. They're seeing it. It follows them to the Middle East. They do what they need to do, deploy for 6 months, and then it followed them all the way back. And they're like, but we don't know what these things are, you know?
Wow. So it followed them into active war.
Yes, and that's why they're frustrated, because they're watching this thing. They know it could be a possible mishap, but they're not getting any answers. Nobody's saying, well, this is ours, sorry, our bad. No.
Not even like it's none of your business what it is.
Right. Not even.
It's just silence.
Right. The commanders would just get frustrated because they didn't have any answers. So the easiest thing, it's not like they were directed, don't talk about this. They were frustrated because they didn't have answers. So just don't talk about it. Because, if think about it, if your kids are coming and telling you, hey, there's something really bad going on, whatever, but there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. You've only got two options. You can either step into the fray and not know what the hell's going on, or you can just say, shut up about it, and we're not talking about it. And that was what a lot of them decided to do,
And that's sad. It really is. Because, it kind of sounds like what you're seeing in this situation is, again, it is if you report something, even if it's as plain as day, right?
Yes.
Even if your whole crew's seen it, there's still going to be someone who flies a desk for the rest of their life if it gets reported. That's how they think.
Yeah.
So they don't want to say anything. And until that stigma is shredded away,
right,
we're not going to see people jumping and lining up to tell us anything. Because
100%, because there's no financial, economical, whatever thing to get you to want to talk about it and tell. So long as you can provide them proof, there's nothing. It's just
a story.
Right. I used to fly on what was called ABCCC, Airborne Battlefield Command and Control Center. Mm-hmm. C1, EC-130, all kinds of radios. Probably the best mission I ever had in my life. But I was told that in the earlier days during Vietnam, when the capability was first pulled out, right, it's all about observation and acoustics and all those other things that we had got in play. And they told me this really tragic story about taking directives from your boss. Sometimes you just gotta be the one to man up and say, look, I'm telling you, this is what it is. And the story that he was telling me was that they had, the whole point of ABCCC is close air support.
Okay.
Right? So when the troops are in contact, they're telling us what they need. They need some fighter to come down. They need a bomber. They need a gunship. Whatever they need, we're supposed to be help coordinating it so that it can get down there. And they had some Marines that were in contact with the enemy. And some other system got alerted, and they were like, there's a huge forces in this other area, and we need you to go over there and support that. And we're like, but we've got troops in contact. We don't want to leave them. It was a bunch of Marines or something like that. And the guy says, I'm telling you, you will go over there. And the guys denied. He said, nope, look, we need to think. If you don't want to get reported, you need to do this. So finally they pull off mission and go help coordinate this other fire mission where they take out the stuff in the jungle. And then when they come back, the Marines got overrun. So they got killed, slaughtered, whatever. So the guy's pissed off because he's like, he doesn't know what he saved over there, but he knew what he was doing here. All right. And then come to find out, the thing that he got pulled off for, they set up a fire mission on a bunch of elephants going through the jungle. So there's some commanders take responsibility and whatever. Because this guy was like, he said, Logan, we all felt like they had to land at a base somewhere else, not where the guy was that was telling them to go do this mission. He said, we wanted to fly to that base, go in there, and just punch the guy right in the face and say, look, you're responsible for this.
Right.
So there's all these little things. There's an interesting one There is a book. It is called, I really want to talk to this author to verify. He's a MAC, Special Operations Group from Vietnam type guy. Rambo, pretty much. He goes out there and just does the dirty deed and comes back, right? And he said they were on a mission where they were doing something behind enemy lines and they knew they were surrounded. They were like, oh shit, it's going down. And he calls in and calls for fire support. And he thinks it was a spooky gunship that came in and just ripped the area a new one. So they go in there, and he says they go in there. There's no bodies. What there is 6-foot-tall gorillas or gorilla-looking creatures, and he said there were bodies everywhere. All right, and nobody told him there were like 6-foot-tall gorillas or anything in the area. And he draws a picture, and it looks just like a Sasquatch. So now I got to go do the research and go find out what the hell this thing is. And I'm like, because I've heard of stories like this before. If we don't collaborate to graduate, pull everything together, and start being able to pull apart what's good, what's bad. We've heard the stories about the Kandahar giants. And all that stuff. We get saturated with so much white noise, we no longer know what's true, what's not. So the idea is, was there somebody that has eyes on? Do we know him for sure? Will he write on a piece of paper that, it's validated and everything? So we can really figure out what is real and what is not.
Right.
And so that's part of what the task force was created to do. Let's figure out what's going on the range. Let's figure out what's going on at the other sites. And how dirty, how deep can we get into it to really get some answers for those pilots? Not for us. It was just a byproduct that it ended up going to Congress and getting all this attention. But that's what it was.
So that was the hierarchy of the task force. That's awesome. So what your job was you were an all-source guy. You're looking at videos, you're looking at complete evidence pools, and you're trying to pull a larger picture together to give to your boss, right?
Yes. And in this case, my boss was Jay Stratton.
Jay Stratton.
Because, and I'll say this, he was the best non-boss I ever had, because he wasn't legally my boss. It was just that I was assigned to help him with the task force. And he was like, lean forward, let's figure out what the hell's going on so we can protect these guys. So that, if we can say, hey, we now know what these things are, if we can explain it in a very copious manner, maybe the pilots will feel a lot better about flying, because they'll know that these things are going to happen. Especially if it was like a blue program, which everybody just assumed
that it was. Right. And for anyone who doesn't know, a blue program is, again, it'd be one of ours, right? Whether that, you have a need to know is a different story. Have you ever seen the jellyfish UFO footage?
Yes, but there's several. So you're going to have to explain which one.
One that I believe Jeremy Corbell puts out.
Okay.
It's got the tentacles hanging down.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that one.
It goes through the base, like changing its translucency. Allegedly goes into the water. Comes out. While you're working in the UAP Task Force? Did you see this?
Yes, I did, and that kind of got me into a little trouble. Not officially, but with Jeremy, because when that one came in,
you're in trouble with Jeremy?
just hear me out.
Okay.
You'll understand. So the way we did everything was everything came in at the secret level. And then once we did analysis on it, because we're using all these extra tools and whatever, it would probably turn up at a higher level depending on what it is. Because maybe it's the source, maybe it's where it's located. All these different things could change the classification. So when that video came in, I was the one that first got it and told my guys, I said, run this every which way but loose so we can try and figure out what the hell this thing really is, all right? And they did. They slowed it down. They changed the contrast. They changed this. Everything, just so we could figure it out. And that's where we left it, all right, on the high side. So then all of a sudden, Jeremy comes out with a copy, not of the original, but the one that I had said got slowed down, pushed forward, or whatever. So I'm like, my first thing is, I got to ask Jeremy what's his source, because his sources are good, right? And then I'm like, but if you tell me your source, I'm going to have to report you. So I'm like...
Stuck between a rock and a hard place
right,
on
so
that
I'm
one.
like, I'm not going to ask him, but I called him up and I said, dude, I don't know where the hell you got this video from, but kudos to you and George, for getting this video. And I said, but I just want you to know, now that I know, because my friends were calling me that helped me do the video and everything, they're like, hey, did you see the Jeremy video? No, I haven't seen it yet. Okay, now I've seen it. Oh, crap. Yeah. Dude, that's the one we did for you. I was like, yeah. And I was like, let's talk for a second. So I told Jeremy right on, I said, dude, I don't know how you got that video, but if anybody comes knocking on my door, I'm throwing you under the bus right away. And Jeremy's like, but Logan, we're buds. No, dude.
We're buds to a certain degree.
But he knew I was joking, know, and we had a good laugh about it. But I'm sitting there going, I'm like, dude, I don't know how you, no, it doesn't matter. But the video, he was upset because when that video came in, we have like this is a full-on, this is crazy, this is kind of crazy, this is not, could be,
right,
and then no, right?
Right.
So 4 categories. So we put this into, unless we could get a visual ID, we call it viz recognition. If we can get a positive ID on it and whatever, we put it in this is kind of interesting here. So yes, we're leaning towards this being a UAP. And Jeremy had got into an argument. He and George Nam had gone into an argument with, I believe it was Sarah Gam. Sarah Gam told him, well, we know what it is. And when he asked her what it was, she couldn't tell him. And so he's looking at me. He's like, hold on a second. He said, well, Sarah's part of the task force and all this. I was Sarah supported the task force. Because if you listen to me when I'm on the program, I use the term, my name is Logan, and I supported the UAP Task Force.
Correct.
And immediately right after, Jay Stratton called me up and goes, what do you mean you supported the task force? I hired you. I personally hired you. You were a part of the task force. I was like, yeah, well, I just didn't want to assume and put my, right, because details matter. If you say you're a part of the task force and nobody can back you up, I think Vito was talking about some other guy we had talked about before who said, well, I talked to the UAP task force and they said, so I called the guy up and I was like, so you talked to the UAP task force? Who did you talk to? And he's like, well, I was like, well, that's not the UAP task force. And I said, so who else did you talk to? And and I was like, okay, let's establish now you did not talk to the UAP task force. And he goes, I thought they were, Logan. And I was like, no. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry. Then I guess I didn't talk to the UAP task force. So when we hear stuff like that, the first thing is like when Sarah first came out and said she was part of the UAP task force. It can be misunderstood, but the first thing that happened was Travis Taylor, Jay Stratton, everybody was calling me and said, do you know her? And I said, yeah. And he said, so she was part of the task force? I said, I thought you hired her. Well, what she was on one of those other agencies that we would go to ask for help.
So again, supporting the task force, not part of that core group of people that were hired directly by Jay. Right? Now, diverting a little bit, side quest. Dylan Borland, what was he a core member or was he was he like Sarah, like a supporting member?
Kind of like Sarah.
A supporting member.
Right. But there were, okay, so there's...
Because he was an image guy.
I would say there's 3 tiers. There's the core, those are the people supporting, and then there's those that seen things, and then they come into the group, and they now start providing support based on their own recollection of things that they've seen and whatever. Because on the R-Space thing that we had, here's something most people don't know, but it's unique and it's totally unclassified, so I can say it. It's we asked everybody on the task force, if you've had a UAP experience, would you be willing to document it here? And that thing, lots of people.
Really?
Yeah. And that's when I try to explain to everybody, an analyst is just another person who's just as curious as you, but he has access to data, and he's probably more inquisitive and is trained on how to do the analysis.
Right.
But he's just like everybody else, trying to figure out what is going on.
Okay. All right. So it's safe to say that the UAP task force had a far reach into the military.
Yes. I mean, I'd get phone calls from all around the world just going, hey, I got something. And I'm like, okay. And he was like, can you switch this channel? Blah, 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 blah. And then I would get there my first question, how long have you been watching it? What did it do that was so unique? Because usually by the time I see it, it's not doing anything weird or unique. It's just moving.
Right.
So then they tell me, we saw it do this. And my next question is, do you have that on the tape?
Right.
And they would say yes or no. And then I was like, okay, then let's continue. And they walked me through what they saw.
So what was the jellyfish UFO?
I don't know specifically. It's in the UAP category from what we were doing, all right? But we wanted to put it there as a placeholder to see if we would see any other objects that carried the same characteristics, that were doing the same thing. And one of the more important things, what we wanted to try and do, I was pushing for this, was we wanted to know, where did these things lay their head at night? You know, are we always seeing them in this location going in that direction? Are they always heading north? Are they always heading south? Are they at the same altitude? All the things that we would do to deduct what is going on, where it's going, what's it doing, the who, what, where, why, when,
Right.
All those things.
Right. So you're looking for correlation. You said
Patterns,
so
objects, yeah.
that video that Jeremy had is arguably a misrepresentation, though, wouldn't it be? If it was changing contrast and speed?
No, we would change the contrast and speed for how we wanted to look at it, because when you do all that, you see different details.
Yeah, of course.
Like if we saw, there's quite a few things that we'd see that was a balloon.
Right.
And it wasn't until we changed the contrast that you could see that there was a string and
Yeah.
whatever. Most of the time you just see the object and it's moving around and
Right.
doing whatever. So we would do all that. With Jeremy's, it was moving along, and we were looking for all the other, because first of all, we're like, is this a Visrecki problem where someone has misidentified a bunch of balloons? And then you're looking at the thermal image or thermal data that's coming off it, and you're seeing some of the things change, all right? And you're like, okay, that's not normal. So now it starts going into this is something more unusual category.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just keep looking, collecting all that data, put it in the report, and you send it.
With the jellyfish, did you have multi-sensory data? So did you have more than just what we saw?
So in that particular data, it was EO and IR. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So with EO and IR, that's pretty much what you would see there. But there's other things there that you remember I told you about Mazin. Right?
Yes. So
the Mazin was like, okay, it's floating along like a balloon. Which way is the wind blowing?
Right.
Is it going along with this thing? And if I remember correctly, there were certain portions where it was going with the wind and certain portions where it was going against the wind. And that's when it was like, oh, yeah, falls into
Did it go into the water?
I did not see that particular part on the first set of videos that I saw. I was analyzing another portion, but the report from the people that were watching it, I read the whole script, and yes, it went into the water and then came back out. And so, if you don't get all the information, you're like, okay, he's credible up until this point, and he has no reason to lie. So there's no reason to feel that it did not go in the water. But what we have also seen too is we've seen optical illusions where it looks like it goes into the water and it doesn't actually go in. Because some things are like seen at the horizon.
Right.
When they drop, it looks like it goes into the water.
Right. It's a spatial issue.
Yes.
Versus the camera. I think Gene had a question.
Yeah. So you're talking about where they lay their heads at night. So for all the videos that the public normally sees, we see seconds of something being followed. Is there any normal pattern of how they stop being tracked? Do they just get out of camera range generally? Do they make a phenomenal, spectacular exit that we're not seeing?
I would say all the above.
Whoa.
There was no direct that we could sit there and say, okay, whenever he gets to this point, he disappears. No. Whenever he gets to this point, he directly ascends. No. Does he do this? No. But we could sit there and say in all the above, we were like, well, this one just disappeared. Well, how did he disappear? What do you mean? Did we switch? Because there were things that we could see in EO, but we could not see in EO, but we could see in thermal, and then vice versa. And you're like, well, how did they do that? And so you look at it, you're trying to tear it apart, and we noticed that when we tried to put them in the category, there was no sharp bell curve that said this is whenever this happens, this happens. It was just across the spectrum.
Right. That's so interesting. And you said there's multiple jellyfish videos?
Yes.
Or that style?
There's that style, but there's also a couple other jellyfish videos where there was something in the water, and it was huge. And we were like, but that looks like a very large, either a very large jellyfish or a large group of jellyfish in the water. And so we were going to marine biologists and whatever and trying to, hey, can you confirm this? What are we seeing? Here's where we saw it. Oh, no, there's not supposed to be this in that area, blah, 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 blah.
Whoa.
Stuff like that. So, it was, you're trying to deal with something that there are no definites. It's the biggest puzzle ever. So more and more people would come into the group thinking, they've got the, because when I approached Lou, when I first saw him, I was like, I'm going full circle. I've seen something when I was a kid. I told my wife I was going to look into this, and now I'm being asked to be part of the government task force. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to blow this thing sky high, And
it almost feels like you were destined to do it.
Right. And I told her that, and we laughed about it. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there going, I noticed just how much I did not know. And you're like, damn it. Because I thought we could nail this thing in the corner. Someone's going to say Area 51. I was going, oh, no, it can't be Area 51. Or hey, what's going on in this area? And I think in some terms, it's like it plays with us. And there has been several stories. This is quite unique, where people have been interested in the subject, and they go outside and they're just walking along. They said, dude, this UFO stuff is crazy. Wouldn't it be crazy if we just saw a UFO? And 5 minutes later, it shows up.
Right.
Right. And the other thing, too, we're not sure if it's due to the creativism.
Creativity.
Yeah, creativity. Let's go with that. But we seem to notice a lot of artists, people that think outside of the box, whether it's visually, musically, whatever. They seem to be attracting these things more than everyday people.
We talked about this on the phone. That is something I noticed a long time ago, is that a lot of people that are in the quote unquote community, and again, I don't want to just say UFO community, because I think the phenomena in general, right? Like, and I'd love to hear some of your, we'll probably end with some more speculative stuff, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on like what, consciousness and, so we'll touch on it a little bit here, but do you think there is something to that where, we talked about like music, right? Steven Spielberg uses it in Close Encounters. Oh, his mom was a composer though. So, you could argue that he was paying homage to her, but he also based a lot of things on the actual Project Blue Book files.
Yes.
So could a universal language, just like mathematics, music, right?
So I'm going to go along with what you're saying. There's a couple things though that I need to say. We used to go along and say math is universal, all right? And I used to go along with that when I was growing up learning math, all right? But I noticed that when ABC met 1, 2, 3, I lost all interest in math because it didn't make sense anymore, because there were logical jumps that they saw that were logical. Who was the one that said, if you ever think about algebra and like in school, and they tell you how to add up the numbers, who was the universal person that came out and said, when you got these things in the parameters, you need to do this, to do this, to do this? What if the aliens do it another way? Yeah, because we're only, so to me, it's not a universal language. Now, the other thing is music. There are some tones that I hear that you might not hear. I had a boss that was tone deaf, so whenever I would play certain R&B music in the office, all he would hear was the boom, 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 but
Like
nothing
the
else. He was
bass
like,
part. Yeah.
right. So how do you say it's universal?
That's
Right?
interesting.
And time, we always talk about time as being the fourth dimension. It's man-made.
It's, yeah.
We're the ones that came up with the frame of reference to say, and then we stumble all over it. So, Eric Davis, I love talking to the man, Dr. Eric Davis. There's a term that I'm going to share with you guys. Look, the basic understanding of it is there's a concept called Boltzmann's brains.
Mm-hmm.
And Boltzmann's brain goes, if you think about the universe when the first Big Bang happened, all right? There was so much chaos that mathematically they deduced that there could have been a brain that came from all that chaos in that instant. Mathematically, they've proven this.
A brain.
A brain, all right? Think about all the neural pathways that we have, right? And then think about all the things that happened at the universe in that 1 second when everything happened, all right? So we're coming up with new concepts and ideas all the time. And Boltzmann's brains is one of them. You can see there's a mathematician called Boltzmann and whatever, but you need to actually look up Boltzmann's brains, and it talks about the chaos and the causality of everything when it just goes poof, and at that instant. And reality could be God, right? However, it still doesn't answer the question, what created right? But we're slowly reaching further and further back. And then Steven Spielberg, the thing about his movie was, I had a lot of military friends that have abductees experienced whatever, and even non-military, tell me that they were triggered by his movie at certain points in the movie. They were a little too close to home, made them feel start having anxiety, stuff like that. And I was like, well, then if the movie was able to cause that, then it hit the mark, because that's how those people actually felt during the actual experience.
Well, that's what I fell in love with, that's why I wanted to make movies, because I grew up in a weird childhood where, like, we weren't really affectionate, it was very repressed in a lot of areas. And, I remember watching movies and feeling things I'd never felt before. Yeah. So I was like, the way that's able to do that, like, I never wanted to be a firefighter, a whistleblower, or CIA guy, right? I always wanted to make movies because I was like, it's a beautiful thing when you can do that.
Yes.
So when we talk about artists, it's not just musicians, right? It's all types of artists make up this community, right? So there's got to be something there. Look at the root word for music, the muse, the ether. But also, what I wanted to say is, even if there is a Big Bang, something has to become before that.
Right.
Right? It just, logically, like, it just, there's something before the Big Bang.
There's always something, but our minds cannot wrap itself around it. Because there's some people said, what if there was another universe and the universe is growing and it's like a bubble and someone does a pinprick and it pokes into this universe and that's the beginning of the Big Bang? You could come up with all kinds of theories.
Well, yeah, they have the big crunch.
But we don't have, our brains are not set up for that. However, our brains might be able to understand it if we reach a different level, vibrational level of energy and whatever. One book I try to tell people to read is Adventures in Flatland.
Okay.
If you've never read it, it's really interesting. It's a book from the the late 18th century, and it's about when a two-dimensional being interacts with a three-dimensional being and all that it causes. And I'm thinking, someone did this in the 18th century? Oh my God. Now there's 2 books, but get the first one.
That's a wild thought.
Yeah.
To have back then.
Yes. That's what I thought. And I was like, and so now whenever I see something like Doctor Who, all right, I'm British, so gotta love my Doctor Who, my TARDIS and everything, bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. However, what caught me was we have had abductees say
The same thing.
same thing. So I'm like, which creator in Doctor Who came up with that concept? And it's, think about the name of the TARDIS is time and relative dimensions in space. All right, relative dimensions in space. So not necessarily our specific time, and not our specific dimension, but all kinds of. I mean, Marvel Universe kind of explored it in Doctor Strange, with
Well, they've
Marvel,
been exploring it now.
yeah,
The
when he
multiverse.
went through all those dream worlds and whatever.
Yeah.
But the idea is we don't know. But what we do seem to think is that at a vibrational level, the higher you get, the more you seem to perceive. You cannot perceive more than you are. You can only perceive
Downward.
Yes.
Right. And that brings up a very interesting point because, again, we see a lot of the correlation between sightings of these craft and just weird oddities in general close to nuclear. And you got to ask, or at least I started asking myself, when we're setting those things off, are we doing more damage somewhere else than we are here, or damage that we can't see or perceive because it's rippling through space-time, and we're doing more damage, and that's what's caused them to whatever them are.
Yes.
And I think there might be many thems.
Yes.
But are we doing more damage somewhere else? Did we ring a dinner bell? Not a dinner bell. Did we ring a bell when we set off a nuke? I think the answer is yes. Whatever. Who came? I don't know.
So it's interesting that you bring that up. I was always told, as I got into this community and started digging, and people would just come up to me and start telling me stuff, and I'm like, okay, don't know what I'm going to do with that information yet, but I'm going to pull it out later and try and analyze it. I was always told that there are pretty much like 4 or 5 others in this part of the universe. There's the reptilians that have always been here under the earth doing whatever. And then there's the mantids, there's the tall grays, short grays, and the Nordics, all right? And we had this part of the galaxy or whatever. Supposedly, when we set off a nuke, it was like turning on a flashlight in the dark.
Ah,
and everybody
beacon.
was like, what the hell's going on over there? And then, what did we do? We set off more. So now, all of a sudden, and everybody's coming now. And we talk about, if you look at the Indian folklore, and they talk about the Vashti, whatever those spacecraft were.
The Vimana.
That they talked about, all right? That was supposedly our corner of the universe trying to deal with all the other people that are now showing up to know what's going on.
Right.
Because, it's like monkeys with guns. Someone's going to do something stupid, So...
Well, and monkeys with guns is being generous when you have thermonuclear weapons, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
So, and then you got to think too. If we've had approximately 5 extinction level events on this Earth, where 99% of all the life
cease to exist.
All right. Now, if that's true, you gotta look at it from another point of view. So, 5 extinction level events. We started off each time. What if there's a society where they didn't have to start off? Life started off at the same time we did, way back when, billions of years before the dinosaurs, whatever, but they didn't have to revert back. All right.
Right. They're in a safer part of the galaxy. They just got lucky, whatever it is. Right.
Now,
they just didn't get reset.
Right.
So now they have 150 million year jump on us.
Yes. So there's that aspect, and then you take it to another level. We are what we would consider the pinnacle of humans, society, whatever. Humans have dominated this world, all right? So what if what we're seeing, based on what we know about life, is only what has dominated their world? That's the aliens coming down.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm thinking, do they have a dog like your Logan? Because there was a lady that she was in Florida, and her ring went off, and she went and looked, and there was something that looked like a friggin' predator that ran across her screen. And the first thing that came to mind was, I was like, some alien just lost his pet and took off and left it here, and now this thing is out in the wild going.
They got pet predators.
Right, and I'm sitting there, I'm thinking of it from a very weird point of view, but I'm sitting there thinking, think about all the things that they might have on their world, because they're saying back in the day when the oxygen level was larger, the animals were larger. They had spiders the size of small dogs, which is not.
Well, we also
world
know
that
like the
I
woolly
wanted.
mammoth,
What was
and
that?
the woolly mammoth
Yeah.
was giant,
Yes.
right? Giant squids.
I don't mind woolly mammoths, but I don't like spiders that are the size of small dogs.
Yeah, I don't think,
Okay.
but even camel spiders get to pretty big,
Yeah, I've
right?
seen those, and I'm
They
not that
can
big.
run like 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Those things are crazy.
Yeah, the Marine. When I was in Desert Storm, the Marines used to have them.
Yes.
Cobras and stuff, and the camel spider would usually just kind of shake it off and win.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn.
Them things are nasty.
Right, and they got teeth that go this way and this way.
Yeah, those things are crazy.
And their stuff messes up your skin. But I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what if they're coming here and they're going, okay, I'd like 2 of those camel spiders, and I'd like 2 of those lions, and they're taking it back. I mean, from another point of view.
What if that's
during-
Noah's Ark?
Yes, yeah. But another point of view I really want to throw at you here is, it was probably the worst time in history, modern history, all right? But when the Nazis were doing all their stuff, that was when we had the most medical breakthroughs, right?
Yeah, war will do that,
Right.
especially
let's-
World War.
Yeah, so let's just go from that point of view. So now you've got a species that has been messing with us, barring us, abducting us, doing whatever for how many thousands, possibly thousands of years? Think about what they know about the human body and what they could possibly fix. I mean, Gene has had some miraculous things happen to him. I've had some things happen in my past, that I can't explain, all right? So think about the knowledge that they know, not only about themselves, but about us and about all the other things that are going on.
Yeah,
And we're still fumbling in the dark trying to figure out some of these things.
right.
So I try to look at all those things and then say, okay, when I was in high school, me and my friends made a book. It was called The Book of Omni, the Book of the All. And unfortunately, when I joined the military and came back, my mom threw the book out with all my comic books and all this other stuff. So I lost a whole bunch of stuff. I was
Ah,
pissed for
Mom.
like 2 years. All right.
Mom.
But my original X-Men comic books and all that other stuff. But Vito knows what I'm talking about.
I know. I got cap tattooed here, man.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about all those things that I had put away. But the Book of Omni, the whole idea of this book was, I had a teacher that was very open-minded, Dr. Neil Kaufman. He was my physics and pretty much science club teacher. He would take us to the movies and then say, so, how do you think a warp drive would really work? And we were like, what? And we'd have to try and map it out and whatever. And he was talking about magnetic bottles and all this other stuff. I mean, he was a great teacher. Really pushed our imagination. So we started this Book of Omni, and the idea was, look at all the world's mysteries that are going on now, and every 5 years, go back to them and see if it's still the same story, right? And now that I get the chance to look back, I'm thinking of all the crazy things that I probably would have written down about the pyramids and all the stuff that you just found out recently about all the catacombs and all the stuff below it and all the other stuff. That's ground changing, all right? And so to look at all those things, to look at the marvels of the universe that these things could tell us, the one thing I tried to tell my friends is I said, kind of like AI, all right?
Yeah.
I hope that AI, at the end of the day, it loves us. Because if not, it's going to wipe us out. And I said, for the others that are out there, I always say, I hope we're worthy. Because I'm thinking with the knowledge that they have, they could have crushed us thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
They could have done a reset at any time. But we're still here.
They could literally just go past into the asteroid belt and just kick one at us.
Yeah, it's not easy. They're not. They
Done.
make it look totally natural. Just
Right.
go kick
Just
that one over there.
yeah. Just send send an extinction level size asteroid towards us. And that's what I always say. If they wanted us gone, if there is a they,
Yes.
we wouldn't even be able to have this conversation.
Right. And
But
I'm totally
whether they're
convinced
good-
there's a they, because I've seen too much.
But I think we have to be careful because what could be mistaken as benevolent could be indifferent. And there is a very
Yes.
fine line between those two.
Yes.
Right? So we do need to be a little
So
bit.
there's malevolent, benevolent, and then indifference.
Yes.
And we need to take a look at all three.
Right.
That's what I say when I think about them as a whole. I'm just thinking, I hope we're worthy enough that they're benevolent enough to say, okay, these guys got a chance. But on the other side of the coin, when I'm not crazy about Stephen Greer because he talks about, our space brothers. But my first thought is, which one? All right? Because they can't all be good. They can't all be bad. I'm looking at this through a human lens. Can't all be good, can't all be bad. However, considering what we've seen in the past, is this indifference? Or is this, if there was a galactic war out there, were they sitting there saying, no, give these monkeys a chance? They're gonna get there,
Yeah.
Or was it like, okay, you guys win. Well, what if they were the ones that were the ones that were in our part of the universe saying, they're not doing so good. They just got the nuke and they just killed a whole 1,000. Maybe we should take them out. And maybe the Galactic Federation of Light that I've heard about, maybe they're the ones that are going to come in or already have and said, no, give them a chance. They'll get there. We made the same mistake. Whatever.
Growing pains.
Growing pains.
Growing
so there's
pains.
all these different aspects to look at, and I'm sitting there going, we're just trying to get this part done. Just this little nugget just to go. My first thing is, who are they? And my next question, as an intel analyst, friend or foe? That's all I want to know. Who are they, and friend or foe?
Okay.
All right.
Fair.
And my frustration is I've left the task force since 2022, and I am no closer to finding that answer out. So I'm looking at your audience and other people, Vito's audience, and other people. I'm trying to sit there and say, how do we stitch this stuff together so in a way that it makes sense that we can figure it out? Because the more, I had a lady tell me, she was, in Alamogordo, and she was telling me about some things that happened to her. And my first response was, is this in a national record anywhere? She goes, no. I said, okay, where's this information? Did you put it in Newfork? She's like, who are they? And I was like, okay, did you put this in MUFON? She goes, I don't trust them. They work for the government. I was like, oh. I said, so is this not written anywhere? She goes, no. I said, why are you telling me? She said, I feel I can trust you. So I was like, okay. And then I started getting a plethora of stuff. Trinidad. I got something from out in the middle of nowhere, Cook Island.
Really?
Yeah, French Polynesia.
Can
Out
you?
in the middle of nowhere, the guy's like, can we talk? I'm like, okay.
Really?
Yeah, and I got a friend off the island of Mauritius in Reunion, and he's like, I swear there's a base out here somewhere as much as we see. And I'm like,
What do you think of that idea
what?
that they use our water?
I think it's very plausible. Very plausible.
More than 70% of the surface is
Right.
covered with
So-
water. It's a constant through the universe,
Yes.
right?
Well, ice, not necessarily the way the water is, but it supports life to some point. But Lou talks about this, so I'm going to mention it. There is being in that position where I was, I got to meet some incredible people. I get to now call Jacques Vallée a friend, which I never thought in my life.
Right.
Little did I know he was the guy in Close Encounters, but now that I knew, I was like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
And you met Bob Silas and all these people. You're like, oh, dude. But the thing I wanted to tell you was there was one report. I can't say where it was. I can't give you all the particulars, but I'll tell you what I can.
You can't, you don't remember, or you can't because you can't.
I can't because the
Okay,
NDA,
fair
whatever.
enough.
All right, but there was a video that we got in. It's full color 4K. Okay? It's a beautiful video because you can see the ocean and everything, you know. So someone's looking at an oil rig. And they're just staring at an oil rig and looking at the areas around it. And he pans the camera. And all of a sudden you see the camera jump back. And there is something in the water. I told Vito about this.
This is under the water?
It's under the water. It's like 5 to 10 feet. You can see it from overhead, but you can't. I think if you were at the same level, you wouldn't see it or anything like that. But you can see it from overhead.
Because
from a airborne platform.
Right, because the rest of the water is a constant color and you're seeing something.
Right.
What shape was it?
Well, that's what I'm going to get to. So there was the camera pins back, and you look and you see a disc, what looks like a disc, under the water. And it's cruising. It's cruising hard. All right? Couple hundred knots in the water, which we know.
So this is a fast walker.
Yeah, if you want to call it, yeah. So we're looking at this thing, and then the guy, I think he has a primary mission, so he's trying to look at the oil rig and trying to jump back and trying to look at the oil rig and jump back. So then all of a sudden he pans out, and we see the whole thing. And the disc is bigger than the oil rig. Right? And we're like, anybody got anything on this? You know? And so it took me back to a story, and I told Vito about it, was Commander Fravor
Yes.
had talked about when they had one of his friends or someone that told him a story about a torpedo that was launched, right? And the torpedo it's a test torpedo, so it's got the buoyancy stuff
Yep.
on it. And they push the buoyancy, the torpedo comes to the top of the water, they come with a helicopter, grab it, yank it away. And what happened was, just as he was about to connect to it, this island, that's what he called it,
Yep.
an island, huge island comes up out of the water, grabs the torpedo, and just takes it back down. So they're just looking at each other. It's like, yeah, I guess we lost that one for today, right?
Yes.
we're not going to talk about it. So when I saw this thing and I'm looking at it, I'm like, I think the first person I talked to was Lou. And I said, I think I just found your island. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, you got to come by my office. I think I just found Fravor's Island. And he's like, okay. And he comes over and we're looking and we're just staring and we're like, what the? I mean, if you look, when they zoom in, what you can see is some kind of, remember when they talk about at the Phoenix lights, all the people that saw it really close up, they said there was this rainbow thing coming off the back?
Yeah, yeah.
It had this rainbow thing coming off the back of it, and it was just going through the water, right? And we couldn't put it to anything. We're like, dude, this is not a test vehicle. This is not an observation platform. This is, the Viz Recce is gone.
This is not glitchy.
Right, you're throwing the book out because he's looked at it. He's looking at the oil rig, then he looks at it, looks at the oil rig, looks at it, then he zooms out, and you got them both in the same picture, and you're like, okay, what do we got here? You know, and there's nothing that we can make from it. You know,
And Fravor also, in the actual original case, the Fravor case, he alleges that there's something under the water
yes.
that seems to be communicating with the
Right,
Tic
when
Tacs.
the Tic Tac was going around,
Right.
said the water was frothy.
The Rosh, the water, the white caps were like
Yes.
pretty hot on that day, and it was a still day,
Right.
right? So then he started seeing the white caps, and he's like, well, and then he sees this thing under the water.
Yeah, he thought it was like a plane that went down or something
So-
like that. So we don't know what this thing is, but I mean, there's so many rumors and talks and whatever, but this was the first visual evidence, and I was so excited. I was like,
If that video came out tomorrow,
yeah.
what do you think would happen? How long was the video?
It was quite a few minutes.
Okay.
I'm not sure because there's going to be half the people out there that think it's just special effects, but there's going to be those people like our buddy Dennis Ansberg
Yeah,
over there.
he's great.
He's going to be like, I knew it, you know, and he's going to be because
he's looking at the what is it, the Baltic anomaly?
What if the Baltic anomaly is the same thing as this thing, but the one he's got is just covered with all the rock and granite on top of it because
Right, decommissioned, whatever,
right,
you know?
because he's having some very weird effects that international scientists have begun to notice about the object.
Really?
And we believe there's more out there, but the idea is, I understand, again, because of national security, we have this thing where, we don't want to show all our wares and whatever, because what if someone makes a breakthrough and we don't and whatever. But on the other side of the coin, I tell everybody we have to collaborate to graduate. And I think that's why some of these people are trusting me and sending me stuff. Even Jeremy Corbell's mom was like, I like him, and I was like, well, I got the seal of approval from Miss, Mama Knapp. I mean,
Right.
Mama Corbell,
Well, you're a stand-up guy.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, back to basics, what do we really know? And the problem is I think Ryan Graves said it best, because I was hoping to go with Ryan Graves out to the Oshkosh Air Show and talk to the crowd out there, because you got a variety of observers. We were going to do it 2 years ago, and then I was going to do it again this year, and then he went with his ASA group. But there are other things out there, and the problem is this is a rough estimate. Maybe 90% of it is not being reported, because there's still the stigma. People don't believe what they saw. It's not until people are being triggered because something else reminded them. It's kind of like a smell that you haven't smelled for years, and then all of a sudden you smell it, something reminds you of mom's cooking.
And it brings you right back.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they're like, I remember this, I remember that, I remember that.
Isn't it funny how time works like that?
Yes.
Where a smell.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people argue that time travel and time, even we had a conversation the other night where Gene proposed this idea of time, not, he laid
Watch
this.
out for that Gene fella, because he's pretty smart, but just be careful.
He is pretty smart.
Yeah.
And he is also security for the show. So, I'm not going to make him mad.
Okay.
I like what I got going on.
And I learned today.
Zap.
Just to go along with that, I had a colonel that once told me, he said, I didn't realize how stupid lieutenant colonels were until I became a colonel. That's another story.
Oh, God. Isn't it funny how time works like that? Because we talk about time travel, right? Do a little thought experiment with me. Close your eyes. Now, think back to your first kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Just observe for a moment. The chances of you seeing the kiss from your vantage point in that memory, very small. You're probably looking over your shoulder or from above looking down at the kiss, right? You're seeing this memory almost like you were outside of your body.
I'm seeing it, but when I look back, for some reason, I'm seeing it both ways, in person and third person.
Right. Because, if you're doing it right, your eyes should have been closed.
Yes. Well, initially, at some point, you want to make sure you're kissing the right person. Just saying.
Yeah. So I just find it weird. Like you said, a little thought experiment there. But then, say you have a recurring dream, right? Have you ever had a recurring dream?
Oh, yeah.
You can pull that memory too, because it becomes a memory.
Yes.
It's no longer separated in your mind from your first kiss. It is, your brain is pulling it the same exact way, just like it pulls a memory, as if that dream were a real event. So
Yes.
Who's to say, right? Because Gene brought up this great point about all, and we've been talking about this, is all life is now, a bunch of nows, right now, compiled upon each other. We interpret that as something linear because that's how we do it. And that's how our brains are wired to do it, to keep us moving, to keep us in survival, right? So I just think that, again, if you had a being that was, say, fifth dimension or higher,
Mm-hmm.
what would that look like to us here,
Yeah.
right?
What kind of TVs do they have?
Well, not even. But what would the craft... So are we seeing a disc, but it's really a fifth dimensional object that we only perceive the disc part because that's all we can perceive because we can't see up. They can see down.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So all what we perceive is a disc moving at these erratic things, moving at these erratic directions, but it's really just a higher dimensional craft that we just, it's moving so out of our perception that it looks like it's banking 9-degree turns.
Right. An easier way to perceive that is, because remember, Dr. Hal Puthoff did this whole thing about ultra-terrestrials and stuff like that. But think about what a modern fighter plane looks like to a biplane back in the First World War, all right? The way it moves and everything.
Right.
His brain is trying to fill in, how does this thing work? He's hearing a lot of noise. He doesn't know about jet engines, right? He's seeing this thing. He hears the bop, 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 bop.
Yeah.
But then he's seeing things disappear in front of him, and he's like, is this magic? What is this? What is this kind of new
sorcery?
Sorcery, right? But because you're in that state, when you're trying to look out, you can't fully perceive everything because your understanding is different. And a lot of abductees have told me that the others have told them stories, and then there's other times when they said, you wouldn't understand. And I'm like thinking, you've already got them to this level where your vibrational level is where you can talk to each other. So, and if they're really talking to you telepathically, right? And they're telling you at that point that you can't understand, your brain's probably gone at that point.
Right.
You know, because no matter what way you try to put the tetrahedron together or whatever, it's not gonna. It's you broke it. It can't go back together again. And so even the other aspects of this thing, I mean, there's so many different aspects. But when I was talking to Colonel Alexander,
John Alexander?
Yeah.
Friend of mine. Yeah.
yeah, he's a friend of mine now. But my friend that introduced him to him, I wanted to. He's bigger than me, so I wanted to slap him, but I know he'd pound me into the sand. So, and he's a Navy SEAL too. So
Fair.
But when he found out that I was into this stuff, and he goes, "There's a friend I want you to meet. There's a friend I want you to meet." And for 2 years, he kept telling me, "There's this friend I want you to meet." And then we had to go out west for something, and he just says, "Oh, you know what? When we come back, we should talk to my friend." And he's on the phone. "Hey, John, what you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we're going to stop by. Yeah. Sure, come on over." And I'm like, "John, who is this John?" And then he shows me a picture of Colonel John Alexander. I felt like bitch slapping him. And I'm like, for 2 years you hid this from me?
He's like, if he just said the name, we would have went then.
Yes, And he's like, well, he's just a friend, whatever. But the thing was, Colonel John Alexander, he was the one that, when we were talking, I know we'll talk about the app later, but he was the first person to say, when you look at Skinwalker Ranch, he said, try to track everything. And I was like, what are you talking about? Because I was just UAP. And he goes, no. He said, when we were there, we experienced everything. Paranormal, cryptids, and UAPs. And he said, and there was no rhyme and reason to it. He said, you would poke it this way, and it would poke you from another direction. So then you start looking at that other direction, then it would poke you from a third direction. And then he said, and then you're like sitting there going, is this thing playing with us? And that's what you get the feeling that they're trying to let you know there's more air than heaven and earth. So
like
you
the
need to
trickster
get your stuff
element.
together.
What do you think of that? What do you think about Skinwalker Ranch? Did you look into it?
Oh, I got invited, but I turned it down.
You turned down a trip to Skinwalker Ranch? I've been invited because I know Caleb, the security guard.
Yeah, I know Caleb.
Caleb's a good buddy of mine, and
yeah. So I was there for a lot of first things, like when David Grush came to the task force, I was the one that got the call because he was like, "Hey, are you Logan?" And I was like, "Yeah."
So you talked to David.
Yeah, at the time back then.
Back
we don't
then.
talk so much now, but back then it was But what happened? I got a call from Stratton, and he said, "We're gonna meet with Brandon Fugel." And I was like, "Who's he?" And he said, "He's the one that took over the ranch after whatever." And I was like, "I'll try and make it." And then something came up, so I didn't meet him that day, right? So Travis, I was talking to Travis, and I said,
Travis Taylor.
I had this. I'm not kidding when I say this. All right, so we had that R space, that online thing, right,
Yep.
where we're talking whatever, and those of us in the DC area, from time to time, we would get together at a restaurant to talk about things from an unclassified level. We'd always have these little in the DC area. We'd have there will be a group of 10, and they'll say, who do we name this under? The name is Bob Lazar. Just tell them just use the name Bob Lazar. So anybody coming in with Bob Lazar, they would know where to, oh yeah, your party's back there, or we'd pick somebody else, but Bob Lazar was the normal one. So, but
I'm sure he'd get a kick out of that.
yeah. So what was happening was Travis said, "Hey Logan," he says, "you're thinking out of the box." He said, "Why don't you come up with a bunch of experiments that we could run out of the ranch?" I said, "How many people can I bring?" He said, "I'll talk to Brandon," but he said, "Let's assume you can bring 10 people." And I told everybody, I said, "Hey, if you want to go out to the ranch, we can go out there. It'll be on our own dime because, task force has no money and whatever, but we could all meet up on this day, da-da-da-da." So I'm like, all right, so who wants to go out to the ranch? And I kid you not, every white person in that group had his hands up, and all the people of color were like, me.
Nope.
And
Seen that story.
right, and I'm like sitting there. I was like, well, this is quite telling, because it was so striking, the divide. Right, it was like Moses parting the Red Sea. There was this side and there was that side. So yeah, so I'm like, why? And most of the people of color, they're like,
I'm sensible.
our families used to talk about this stuff, and they said, don't mess with it when you come across it, because it's not, you're coming in to figure out because you're curious and want to know what it is, but this thing has got a message for somebody else, not necessarily for you, and you're interfering with it. Hence, you get a hitchhiker effect, something PTSD related.
So this is cultural.
Yes, it's very cultural. And so when I talked to all my white friends, they were like, dude, it's so crazy. It's so cool. We got to go find out. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, we draw the line right here, and we're going to stay on this side of the fence. And everybody's been asking me to go out there. I talked to Travis. I said, I may want to try and come out. And last year I had to go out somewhere close by there. And I said, Travis, are you going to be there? And he goes, no, I'm not going to be there. I said, well, I'm not going to try and go there without you because you're the one I really know. But I know Caleb and everybody, but you're the one I really know. And Brandon doesn't know me from Adam, so I'm not going to go bug him or anything like that. So we talked about it, and then I was just like, it's not so much about the ranch. I'm more interested in this cultural divide. Why is it so? Why is it like we've got historical memory that still tells us stay away, while other people are still going, oh yeah, I would love to go try it, and whatever. And so I told myself, I'm going out to the Phenomicon this year, and I'm going to try and call Travis or Jay and say, if you guys are going to be out there, would you be able to see if I can go to the ranch? And I got to suck it up because the idea is if I tell everybody this, and you can hear this, I'm repeating it once again for the audience. If you see me at Skinwalker Ranch, know that Logan has an escape route. Logan has a plan. My plan is I will not be the slowest person at that ranch. Okay? I won't be the fastest, but I will not be the slowest.
You just don't got to be the slowest.
Right.
Yeah.
History tells us something different.
Yes, thank you. So and the reason why I say that is because if you're the fastest, you run right into the next thing. So you need to...
No. He's saying just bring another black person.
Well, we could do that too,
Because one of them has to go
Well,
first.
Well, you know what? I did tell Vito he's part of the family, so Vito can go.
Well, maybe I could talk to Caleb because they invited me to Phenomicon.
Okay.
So maybe I could talk to Caleb. We could all go together.
Yeah, that would be great.
But
we'll
talk. We'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk off air.
But my thing is, if I'm going there, and I don't mind seeing things, but if you're gonna deliberately try to scare me, now I'm gonna have a problem with you. You know?
No, yeah, it's not like that
I
there.
know.
Yeah.
I'm not talking as in humans messing with me. I'm talking as in
The actual phenomenon.
yeah, because my ancestors are gonna be pissed if you try to mess with me, and they're gonna try and fight back. I know that for it's just one of those things. So for the Skinwalker Ranch, Blind Frog Ranch, and I know there's other places like this.
Very much so.
I'm very interested in what's going on in Hudson Valley area. I'm very interested in what's going on in Puerto Rico.
So are you starting to lean more towards like wanting to figure out what's going on with the interaction?
I'm trying to lean forward on anything that can give me a better clue as to what's going on.
Okay.
Again, friend or foe, and who are they? All right, because there's rumors out there that they would be more willing to interact with us if we were a one world government, but because we're not, they can kind of skate some of the rules on how they interact with us and what they do. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it kind of makes kind of sense.
It does. It does.
But we want proof. We want to know the yes, the no's, the what maybes. I mean, I heard that there was something that happened way back when, back in the 60s or the 70s or whatever. And supposedly there's rumors that there was a UAP that came down and the door was left wide open. And
just left open.
Just open. No bodies, no nothing. And a lot of people seem to think that it might have been a test. Are we at that vibrational level yet to where we can operate it and know what's going on or whatever?
Or what if that's the, and no pun intended, but what if that is the vehicle that drives the change to the next vibration? Like, all right, you guys think
it's a catalyst.
Right. So you guys think you've mastered this, you think you're at the top of the chain. Drop, here's something that will really have you guessing for a little while, right? And that just you see what I'm saying?
We're only guessing, but yes. Right?
So like, is it seeded?
Right, and someone even told me that the plan, so-called plan, if there really is one, was to drop one of these things in different areas
and see which governments,
which culture was the one that would get the brass ring, so to speak. And then I even heard another rumor that
this is all speculative, guys.
Is all speculative.
He's not representing a task force here saying this.
There was another rumor that there was something that came down by accident. We brought it down, or it crashed, whatever, and it had something dangerous in it. And we were told that we need to pack all the stuff up and give it back, right? They gave us coordinates and everything. And
who's they? The others?
The others, right? There was a ship that came down in whatever. It was not one of these pristine ones. It was like destroyed, whatever.
Right, because we maybe have brought it down with kinetically.
So supposedly they asked us to give everything back because there was something very dangerous in there and they did not want us to have hands on it, right? And so the rumor is again, you hear all this circular reporting, whatever. So the rumor is that when they got it back, they sent back a message saying the critical thing that they were looking for was not there, and that they were not very happy, and that when they come back, there will be a reckoning. And that's when you start hearing these rumors about something supposed to happen in 2027, 2028, 2029 timeframe. And I'm like, well, who said this? When? How? And I'm trying to get to the rest of all this.
Right.
And I said, and if there's going to be a reckoning, who's it going to be with? Everybody or just the people that did it? Because I'm going for the people that did it, because we had nothing to do with it, right?
Right. Hopefully they're smart enough to know that clearly our government is not representing all of us here.
Right. So then I thought about it and I was like, hold on a second. They said when they come back. So I'm like, well, if they're not here, then who the hell's flying around now? And I was at a convention thing, And this was not a UAP related, it was more of a paranormal thing. And someone walked up to me and said, the ones that are here now are the ones that broke the treaty. I was like, whoa, what treaty? I'm trying to get the rest of the answers. And, he's talking about the treaty, supposedly Eisenhower.
The Grenada Treaty.
To that they could abduct us, but they have to put us back. They can't harm us and all that other stuff. So I said, well, if they broke the treaty, what part of the treaty did they break? And he's like, and this person's not. And it's funny because now when I try to remember that person's face, it's like there's like this fog over their face. I just seem to remember their clothes, And I keep thinking, was someone messing with me, Because at first I thought, was that dreaming? So I don't know what's going on. But the thing was, I was like, so what happened in New Jersey? Those are the ones that broke the treaty. I was like, no, you don't understand, because I know that someone said it was the government and we were testing whatever. But I did have one friend. She said she lives in Jersey, up there where Vito lives and whatever. Represent, right? And she said they saw all the UAP, whatever those vehicles were that everyone was talking about. She said several of them were kind of like in a trail. And she and her husband got a flashlight and decided to
flash
one. And she said one of them left the trail. And she said it sounded like a helicopter, like a really conventional helicopter. And she said it came towards them. And then her husband said, something's wrong. And, the sound and the acoustics and whatever, so they're shouting at each other. But he said, something's wrong. And she's like, what? And then all of a sudden it looked at them and then went away. And he said, do you know what's not there? And she's like, what are you talking about? He goes, there was no air pressure. There was no acoustic concussion from the rotor blades that you would get from a regular helicopter. But it sounded just like a helicopter.
So mimic.
So it was a mimic of some type. Like it was a recording they were playing back to us, right? And then the thing that really got me was they said on the news there was one of these drone things that came down in a parking lot or something.
I remember this.
And they were saying it was just a regular drone. Right?
Yeah.
And there was some guy on some kind of train going by the area where this parking lot was.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I remember this. Yeah.
And I was frustrated because when it went by, whatever it was, they had 2 police cars blocking it off, and it was as big as the police cars. That was no regular drone.
No.
Right? Because when you hear drones, most of us here, we think DJI, Maverick, whatever. We don't think super big, whatever.
Right.
These things were huge compared to, what a regular drone would look like. So, yeah. But this thing was the size of an SUV, and they were using 2 SUV law enforcement vehicles to block it up. So people couldn't see it. Wow. So we know we're being lied to. The thing is, to what extent are we being lied to?
For someone like you, how does that make you feel?
It makes me very frustrated because I'm thinking there are certain things that we can handle, and then there are certain things I have to sit there and go, it's one of those things that make you go, can we really deal with that? I would say 80% of what we've endured and I feel the government has lied to us about, I think we could have handled that quite well. It's
right.
The other stuff that maybe there was some underhanding, something, maybe someone got hurt or something like that. And then the worst part is like a stupid science fiction movie. What if there are people there that, they know the end of the world is coming, and someone says, well, if you help me out and don't tell anybody else, we'll take you with us, whatever. And I'm like, possibility of that pretty remote, but every now and then it does make you sit there and go,
Well, I find interesting is like, even with you said like, oh, then when we return, there'll be a reckoning. What does that sound like? It sounds like every origin story and creation myth, right? They promise to return, not with a reckoning, but
right.
Yeah. You're right. They sometimes they do. Well, exactly. That's the thing is like, where is the line being blurred between what we're seeing now and what our ancient ancestors based religions on, right?
Yes.
For me, it's like How is nobody else seeing that? Well, aside from people in the community, like how is the
Because
normal
they know,
person?
because if they step across that line, right, you're messing with their belief system, so they
to-
don't want to cross that line. There is a sighting that I had. Again, I can't say where, but it was overseas, obviously. Someone called us in and said, "Hey, you need to check this out." And there was a light that showed up over a military facility somewhere. On radar, nothing showed up,
Okay.
but it was just one light over this facility. And over the span of a couple hours, what was the light could be mistaken as just the head. And then this things came out that looked like the shape of wings. It looked like a paper mache angel that you would put on a Christmas tree. String them all up.
Whoa.
And it just slowly came out, and you're watching all this stuff, and we're like, dude, but what is this? And if I hadn't been a scientific guy or whatever, and I could sit there and see myself, yo, yea verily, whatever. But the head popped up, then these things that kind of look like wings, and then the body kind of came there, and it just sat there, right? People are taking pictures, people are still walking, but people are taking pictures and movies and whatever. And it must have been there for like 3 hours, maybe 2.5. And then all of a sudden, the body
hours?
just went back up, and then the wing things just kind of went back in, and then the head part just stayed there for a little while longer, like maybe 15 minutes, and then pop, it was gone. And we're like, what the hell was that? And you're left scratching your head, going, I'm a firm believer that when we see UAP at night and the lights are flashing, it's either for two things. It's just the way that their vehicle operates, and it's just giving off the light, or they're signaling somebody, and we're not the recipient. Somebody else is being signaled, and I think if it's one of their people, there may even be the lights that we see. There may be some lights that are in the non-visible spectrum
For us, right?
but they're signaling somebody, because they're high up in the sky, they're covering a wide area, and someone could sit there and go, oh, that's me. It could be that they're signaling implants. It could be that they're signaling one of their people, whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing is, because so many people come to me and just ask me this one question: if they don't want to be seen, why do they turn their lights on? And I'm like, that's a damn good question.
Yeah. Or why do they even have lights?
Yes.
Right? Like, so, it could even fall to that mimicry thing.
Yes, it could be. So all these questions and so little answers. So I would like to start getting answers. I want people to start calling me and saying, okay, give me what I'd really like. Gene, this is maybe something you can help with.
I'll give you all the answers. I got them all.
Yeah. I would like to build an AI hypothesis engine. And what happens is we feed it, and based on the information it constantly keeps coming up with new hypotheses. And then, because at a certain point, it's going to diverge and take you in a certain direction and say, this is not happening over here. Here's where all the interesting stuff is.
So I actually have that already.
Son of a bitch.
Afterwards, I'll walk you through it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it already.
Yeah, but the men in black are going to come see you, so you might as well be prepared. Make sure you got that gun ready. Yeah. That's right, people. He has an M60.
Our studio is protected.
But that's what I really wanted. When AARO got created, the thing that really stuck out to me was nobody that was... Because I came in on the back end of ATIP and beginning of AARO. And when...
You mean the beginning of...
ATIP.
So the end of ATIP?
Yeah.
And then through the UAP Task Force and into the AARO.
I didn't really get it. I was there for AARO, but I left after AARO. I knew AARO was being created.
Stood up and yeah.
And the thing that got me was, this is my observation. Maybe someone can tell me different. But when I noticed that none of the people, either through leadership like Carl Nell, Jay Stratton, or Lou Elizondo, David Grush, whatever, were going to be a part of AARO, And then when I noticed that the worker bee people that were part of the UAP Task Force were not part of AARO, all that told me was that AARO had a totally different mission than what we thought it was. Or else, because why would you want to get rid of all that expertise that you just gained? Because the effort was, we are an organization that has no money and we're trying to leverage off what we can. Now we've got money, and now you're going to put completely different people in charge?
And start from scratch?
And start from scratch? That makes no sense in any type way or
Not
whatever.
even a little.
No. So after that, I was just like, I found out that I had some friends that became part of AARO, and I was like, more power to you. And I've had some of the legal guys that work for the people on Capitol Hill come talk to me. Hey, you should come talk to us. I was like, I don't think so. I have nothing to say to you. And I said, I talk about what's at the unclassified level, and I let you know what I've been speculating on and what I'm trying to figure out. But as for anything that's specifically classified, nope. If you've got the appropriate clearances, you can go through the same authorities I did and go get those clearances. And
go get the
go look it up.
information.
Yes.
And well, what do you think about what AARO says when there's no evidence? Because you've clearly seen evidence.
So obviously they have not seen the evidence that I've seen, or they are blind to what's in front of them. Because again, let's jump back a little bit. I think I told you that there are people that we clearly know that we went to and they lied to us and whatever, and they said, this is nothing here, all right? When I saw the disc in the water, all right, everybody looked at it and was like, what's that weird rainbow shit coming off the back? What is this? How big is this thing? Whoa, how's it going that fast? What's it doing? We're asking all the right questions, all right? So I sent it to an organization because I wanted some help. So I said, you guys look at this. And they came back and they legitimately, no humor whatsoever, they actually told me that what I was looking at was the shadow of the moon moving across the face of the earth. And I called up Jay Stratton and I said, hey, this organization that you were connected to and you told me to use and blah, 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 blah. He goes, yeah. I said, permission to treat them as hostile because I'm pissed. And he was like, what happened? And I told him and he goes, okay, look, I'm okay. Do what you need to do. Because I was, everybody that looked at it, you could clearly see shadows don't give off rainbow shit, all right? Shadows don't act like that. The shadow of the moon is much larger going across the face. There was so many things, and we're all looking. I was like, if they're just going to boldly lie to us like that, then they've been told not to say anything, or the person's a junior, doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Either way, whatever, we've asked them for a legitimate answer. This is what they gave us.
Yep.
I said, F it, I'm not going to these guys again.
It was a good test. You know what I mean?
It was a good test to see where their mindset was at, but
it's Project Blue Book 2.0.
Yeah.
The new swamp gas.
Yeah, and I think somebody, remember, there was the ones that, in Project Blue Book, there was the group that they couldn't precisely get an answer to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think someone should go back all the way through Project Blue Book and start from scratch. Because I think if you took a good look at it, I think there's going to be more than just that bunch. Because remember, they just were there to just slap something on it and then get it out the door and whatever. I don't think they took a precise look. And the knowledge of what we know now as opposed to then is way greater. So those people can what is that thing parallax? That's the first thing everybody wants. Oh, it's parallax
or pareidolia.
Yeah. Both. There's the parallax of the water, and there's the pareidolia. Pareidolia is the one where you
make shapes.
Yeah,
you
out
see
of the clouds.
Okay. So parallax.
Parallax is when you're looking at the water and you think it's going real fast when you're just turning and
right.
whatever. And So now we know to look for those things, and we can study those things and do a lot better different things to define what something really is. And back then, it was easy to just say, oh, it's swamp gas. Oh, it's Venus. Oh, do you really think a guy's going to chase Venus? There's no pilot alive out there. There's that one pilot.
Not a chance.
I don't know if you guys saw it. There's a pilot on YouTube. Him and his partner are flying from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia. And as they're flying up, coming up north, all of a sudden this light just appears right by their aircraft. I think it's a cargo aircraft. And this light is just cruising along with him. He's an Indian guy. This light is just cruising with him, and there's nothing on their radar, nothing coming in, but it's just a light that's just going along with him.
Just pacing them?
Just pacing them, you know? And they've seen this in Mexico. People coming up, and all of a sudden the light just kind of drops down and, you know, right beside them and everything. It's that type of stuff. When people start putting in stupid answers, we should give them stupid prizes, you know? and then just move on, because that's the type of person that the stigma should be attacking, and you should say, you're never going to work in this town again, buddy. That's it. You're done.
Right.
And just move on. And I'm telling people they need to get out. They need to look for these things, because there's things happening all day. And we've got to take really good look at these things and then say, okay, what is this really? Is it trying to tell us something? Is it trying to warn us of something? Or is it just trying to make itself be seen? Because there's a famous case in, I think it was Belgium. This couple is driving home for the holidays or whatever, and this UFO is coming from the sideline, and they notice that it's going to intercept them at a certain point in the road. Right. So they're driving along, and, you know, typical woman, his wife is like, what is it? What is it? And the husband's like, I don't know. She goes, what is it? Come on, tell me, what is this? And so he flashes his lights at it because it comes in the middle of the road. It flashes its light back. He flashes it again. It flashes back, and he's like, nope, that's good enough for me. And he does a U-turn, goes home. You know, and his wife was like, what is it? And he's like, I don't know. I don't care. You know?
What?
You know? And
sorry, we're at an hour and 45 since we came back from the break.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No problem. But yeah, there's all this stuff that's going on, and you hear some of these stories. The guy's like, so I'm looking. So there was a couple, an older couple. I told Vito about it. I was at the paranormal conference in Seaside, Oregon, that they have around every March, not the Miniville thing, but Seaside March.
Yes.
In Seaside, Oregon, and I was up on stage talking about my app, and I'm walking back and forth, you know, doing the talk, and I noticed there's this Asian couple, two ladies actually. They got to be in their 70s, and they're watching me, and I'm thinking, damn, the way they're watching me, I was like, is my fly open or something like that? You know, I'm like, okay, cover yourself, just kind of, every time you go behind the podium, do a quick gut check, you know, whatever. And so I get off the stage, and they did a beeline to me, and they said, Mr. Logan, what are these things? And I said, I don't know. And she says, can I show you something? And I said, sure. She pulls out a picture of this beautiful, and I do mean beautiful, blue orb sitting in a doorway. It's about just big enough to fit inside of the doorway, all right? I'm like, what is this? And she says, I had a birthday party. I overdid it. So, and all my family was there, so I told them I wanted to take a rest. And she said she was resting, and she heard like a scratching on the wall, like someone rubbing their hand on a wood panel. And she says this thing oozed its way through the wall. So she's screaming, and this thing goes to her doorway and sits there and is doing this breathing thing, like where it's growing and shrinking back and forth. And she's screaming, so her kids come running. And her son was the one that took the picture. She said it stayed there for about 3 to 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. And then it left exactly the way it came in. It went right to the wall and just kind of oozed right through the wall.
What the?
And I was so taken back. I was like, I'm sitting there trying to come up with stuff. I said, ma'am, let's talk later. Let's talk later. I really, you know. And I was like, I should have gotten a copy of that picture because I've been back there 4 years in a row going, hey, if the Asian ladies that were here last year, and they've never shown back up. But I'm looking for them to give me something.
Well, Asian ladies, if you're out there, let's find Logan.
They said they were from Northern California and they went to Seaside, Oregon.
So before we get into like the members only stuff, tell me about your app. Tell me about Tell me what the whole plan is with the app and how you're planning to use this to help the UFO community in general.
So the general idea is as we were using the UAP Task Force, I was becoming more frustrated because I was like, I call them the antibodies. There was someone there deliberately manipulating, trying to stop stuff that was going on, So I was like, okay, how do I deal with this? And I said, we need something. I said, whoever the antibodies are, I don't know if they're international, local, quasi, whatever. I just said, obviously they've got a game plan and they've got better reach and more resources than us. Because all they have to do is just say, oh, the minions are doing this now, and they come up with a new game plan and they, execute, and we get stupid again. So I said, what if we had a tool that everybody could get around? Everybody that wants to figure out what's going on, they use this tool. So I came up with an app called Phenom. I came up with version 1. Version 1 was good, but I wasted a lot of my own money doing this. Everybody was like, you should have done a GoFundMe and all this other stuff. And at the time, I couldn't because I didn't fully understand. I didn't know all the super rich people like Gene and whatever. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So I had some guys build a version 1, and it worked fine. It was both in Android and in iOS. And then I started having problem with the iOS one not the iOS one, the Android one, once I started looking into doing a version 2. This time I got a bunch of volunteers who helped me, and it's like herding cats because everybody's got egos, but we're almost there. And I'll get you a QRC code or something that you can put on your show and show the audience. But the idea is we have an app called Phenom. It's for the skeptics, the believers, and the in-betweeners, okay? We are looking at UFO, we're looking at paranormal, and we're looking at cryptids.
So you're not putting yourself in a box here.
Mm-hmm.
It's report everything.
You report anything in the
Okay.
I did not want to, like I remember, I said, John Alexander said all 3 happened to Skinwalker Ranch. So that's where I decided to take this from. So we're not Enigma. Enigma will tell you that whatever you get from them is they own it in perpetuity. All I want is a co-licensing or a co-sharing agreement. It says the data is yours, but if I see that I've got 4 bits of data that look similar and I want to do some analysis on it, I don't want to keep going back to the user and saying, mother may I, mother may I, mother may I. I'd rather just do it and then show them what the results are.
Right.
But the idea, again, is we collect all this data from everywhere, collect it, and when we get really interesting outliers, I want to put that in front of Dr. Davis, Jacques Vallée, all the graybeards, all right? My night, Knights of the Round Table,
Yeah.
and say, let's examine these outliers. Let's take these outliers to academia, and then from there, academia, let's take that to Congress and say, here's what you got.
You're essentially you're applying your own background of all-source intelligence.
Yes.
Right? And instead of you taking reports from the field, you're using people on the in the citizens and around the world who are seeing these things, and they're sending you the data, they're sending you the evidence. Then you're combining all of it, you're looking at it big picture, and then you're bringing the best of the best to those who need to see it.
Yeah, we're going to do first phase analysis, second phase analysis.
This is brilliant.
We'll take it to academia. We've got it so that if you talk in like Spanish or Portuguese or whatever, it will automatically take in all that information. We have a back end that we're going to use for journalists and other analysts that it will instantly translate whatever that language was. so that you'll know the full context of what you're seeing, where they saw it, how they saw it, all those other things. We've got some other 3D tools, kind of like what McWest has, works a little
Yeah.
differently. And we're looking at some other capabilities that we can put into it. The first phase of it is going to be free, but after I have to keep paying these AWS charges and whatever, we're going to have to put some kind of something where you pay a little bit for it, whatever. But the idea is I will give you your 15 minutes of fame because I'm not interested in that. So we can, have them come talk to you or whatever. And after we show them, hey,
Yeah.
this is what one of your audience members saw, we let them talk to you. But overall, the idea is to work with them, maybe do a full-up investigation. In my perfect world, Logan's perfect world, there's these groups out there like Soul, there's New Fork, there's MUFON, whatever. What I would like to see them do, even though they probably won't because nobody likes to work. I like to collaborate to graduate, but nobody else does.
Yeah.
But what I would say is...
Back to the egos.
Right. Soul should handle all of the engagements with Congress and the international community and whatever. New Fork should be the one. All they do is just take phone calls. And then MUFON all they should do is just do investigations. And that way everybody works together. It's a,
It's a collaborative effort.
We do exposure to the phenomena. We educate on the phenomena. And exposure, education, and we provide education. So exposure, education, and whatever the other E is. I keep forgetting. It's education, exposure, and I used to always do this 3 E's, but
It's all right. I get what you're
bring
saying.
them all together, and then that way everybody's on the same sheet of music.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing thing. And then there's also there's so many things that you can do with that. And I think there's been a huge problem with Enigma. I'm not afraid to say that, I wouldn't upload a video there.
Right.
Because yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
we're going to do a bunch of tests in different places, Puerto Rico, New York, and different places. But the idea is to bring the community closer together, educate them on what they're about to see, give them that exposure. I'm going to say 2 other things. For anybody, I'd like to do a test with you. Around the world, and especially in the U.S., I think there's about 40 of them, there are places called gravity hills. These are places where you can pull your car up to it, put your car in neutral, and your car rolls up the hill.
oh yeah, I've heard about that.
I'd like you to go to these sites. You can look on Wikipedia, just put them in, and I'd like you to record what you're going through and tell me what you think of these places, because it's the easiest way for me to get people to engage with something that is outside of the normal. All right? So that there's that. And there's a couple books I would like to tell you to read. There's a book called Lies Above. This is about pretty much how AARO bamboozled everybody. There's Admiral Gallaudet's book. I think it's common. I'm going to say it messed up. But Admiral Gallaudet has a really interesting book out there. Jay Stratton has Out of the Shadows.
Yes.
And I believe that comes out in the beginning of October.
Yeah.
And I think all these books, Lou's book, Eminent, he's got another book coming out. All these books, I think if you're just learning about this stuff now, these are books that can kind of ease you into some of the stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
So that you can do a deeper dive later if you find the subject that interesting. But I think just about everybody, when I do the 6, 7, let's say it's 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon. If I get 5 people together, normally if I ask them if they've had anything to do with paranormal cryptids or whatever, usually 3 out of the 5 say yes.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of people. So when Congress is sitting there asking everybody to participate, I'm thinking, ask your own people, because you're more than 500 people. You got a couple of 100 people in there that probably have a story to tell, but because of the stigma, they're still keeping their mouth shut.
I agree.
So we need to collaborate, talk to each other, look at the information, try the best to document what you can, and let's figure it out together.
Well, Logan, you are welcome back in the studio and in, just back here in general, anytime you want. You are such a fun person to talk to. We kind of we just did more than 3 hours, and we just barely scratched the surface,
True.
brother. So, in the members only segment, I want to talk to you about Syria, the Syria case, and then we'll wrap up. But to everybody watching, we will see you on the other side. You guys are the ones who make it possible. I want to say a special thank you to Gene on the keys and to Vito Logan and helping out today. It was absolutely amazing. You guys are, just thank you so much for helping the show continue to work. So, and then, to all the members out there, guys, like, share, subscribe, follow on your podcast platform of choice. All the links for the description, or all the links will be in the description below, and we'll put one for your app.
Yeah, I'll get you the information.
Get me that.
You can either go to Logan at thephenom.app, and you can find a website, thephenom.app, and it should show you everything. The new version of the 2.0 version, we are planning on getting it into the app stores this coming week, and it should be out maybe 2 weeks after that.
Wow. So this is perfectly timed. So that's awesome. And I'd love to, again, we definitely will collaborate more and do this more, because this is amazing. So guys, thank you so much. Stay humble, stay kind, most importantly, stay vigilant. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you.
Just
I'm thinking you just put this thing together in 30 seconds, and I'm like, there's a whole shit. He's a professional.
yeah.
Yeah, because you were playing games with like,